The first time the mayor called my dad during the baby shower, my mother-in-law laughed. The second time, my husband lunged for the phone faster than I did. By the third ring, my dad looked at me with eyes that warned me not to trust a soul in the room. Then it rang again just as we reached for the presents. That was not a checkup. It was a command that would tear this family apart. My name is Maisie Wallace. I am 34 years old, and currently, I am existing in the swollen, uncomfortable, and highly scrutinized reality of my 7th month of pregnancy. To most people in the city of Crown Harbor, I am a woman who struck the marital lottery. I am the compliance officer from a modest background who somehow managed to secure a ring from Graham Ashford, the golden son of the Ashford Meridian Group. To the outside observer, my life is a series of lucky breaks and polished surfaces. The Ashfords do not believe in luck. They believe in branding. Living within the orbit of my husband's family is like living inside a very expensive, very fragile glass sculpture. The Ashford Meridian Group is responsible for building half the luxury skylines in this state. They are developers, creators of facades, and architects of perception. They understand that if the exterior looks expensive enough, nobody bothers to check the foundation until it is far too late. My mother-in-law, Celeste Ashford, treats the family name like a publicly traded commodity. Every dinner, every charity gala, and certainly every pregnancy is a press release waiting to happen. I work as a risk and compliance officer at Juniper Ridge Financial. My entire career is built on the premise that people lie. Numbers hide secrets. And if you look at a document long enough, you will find the crack in the armor. I am paid to be suspicious. I am paid to hate ambiguity. Yet, in my marriage, I have spent the last 3 years training myself to ignore the very instincts that make me good at my job. I convinced myself that the polite coldness of my in-laws was just their way. I told myself that their constant, subtle reminders of how fortunate I was to be an Ashford were just awkward attempts at inclusion. I was wrong. It was not awkwardness. It was a boundary line. The baby shower was the latest battlefield. I had wanted something small, a backyard gathering, maybe a barbecue with paper plates and people who actually knew my middle name. Celeste Ashford had laughed when I suggested it. It was a light, tinkling laugh that sounded like ice hitting the bottom of a crystal glass. "Oh, Maisie," she had said, patting my hand with a touch that was lighter than air but heavy with condescension. "This is not just your baby. This is an Ashford grandchild. We have standards to uphold. We cannot have the mayor sitting on a folding chair in the grass." So, I let it go. That has been my mantra for this entire marriage. Let it go. Keep the peace. Keep the house quiet for the baby. I told myself that fighting Celeste over a party was not worth the stress it would cause Graham, who always looked so pained whenever his mother and I disagreed. Caught in the middle of 2 women he loved, or so I thought. My father, Frank Wallace, is the opposite of the Ashfords in every conceivable way. Dad is a man of silence and utility. He drives a sedan that is 10 years old because it still runs, and he sees no reason to replace something that works. He dresses in colors that can best be described as pavement and oatmeal. He is never late. He never imposes. If he says he will be somewhere at 6 in the evening, he is there at 5:55, waiting in his car so he does not disturb you early. The Ashfords tolerate Frank. That is the best word for it. They treat him like a hired contractor who accidentally wandered into the VIP section. They are polite, of course. They ask him about the weather. They ask him if he caught any traffic. But they never ask him what he thinks, to them. Frank Wallace is background noise. He is the quiet, boring father of the girl Graham married. He is harmless, or at least, that is what they thought. 3 days before the baby shower, the atmosphere in our house shifted. It was subtle, like a change in barometric pressure before a storm. I was sitting at the kitchen island, reviewing a compliance file for work on my laptop. The kitchen is a pristine expanse of white marble and stainless steel, so clean it feels like a surgical theater. Graham was standing by the window, looking out at the driveway. He was tight. That is the only way I could describe it. His shoulders were drawn up toward his ears. and he kept tapping his fingers against his thigh in a rhythmic, agitated pattern. "Is everything okay with the construction site on 4th Street?" I asked, not looking up from my spreadsheet. Graham jumped. It was a small flinch, but I saw it. "What? Oh, yeah, fine. Just typical delays. You know how the city council is. Red tape everywhere." "You usually handle red tape better than this," I said, closing my laptop. "You look like you are waiting for a bomb to go off." He forced a smile. It was the Ashford smile. Perfect teeth, crinkling eyes, zero warmth. "Just pre-baby jitters. Maisie, I want everything to be perfect for Sunday. Mom is going all out." "Your mother always goes all out," I said. Graham walked over and kissed the top of my head. "You are lucky she cares so much. Not many mother-in-laws would drop $20,000 on a party for their daughter-in-law." There it was, the reminder. You are lucky. We are generous. Do not forget the ledger. "I know," I said, my voice neutral. "I am very grateful." Later that afternoon, my father stopped by. He did not come inside. He texted me from the driveway, true to form, saying he had dropped off a box of books he had found in the attic books from when I was a child. I walked out to meet him. The Crown Harbor air was crisp, smelling of the ocean and expensive landscaping. Frank Wallace was leaning against his car, arms crossed. He looked tired, not physically exhausted, but weary in a way that sits in the bones. He was wearing his usual gray windbreaker. When he saw me, his face softened, but his eyes remained alert. He scanned the street, then scanned the windows of my house. "Hey, Dad," I said, waddling slightly as I approached. "You could have come in. Graham is just watching football." "No, I won't bother him," Dad said. He handed me the box. It was heavy, taped shut with excessive care. "Just wanted you to have these before the big party. I know there will be a lot of fancy gifts on Sunday. These are just old stories." "I love them," I said. "Thank you." He looked at me, really looked at me, in a way that made me feel like I was 6 years old again and he was checking for a fever. He put a hand on my shoulder. His hand was rough, calloused from years of working with his own 2 hands, not pointing at blueprints like the Ashfords. "Maisie," he said. His voice was lower than usual. "Yeah, Dad." "Sunday is going to be a lot," he said. He paused, choosing his words with the precision of a man who cannot afford a mistake. "If a strange number calls my phone while we are at the party, I want you to know it is nothing to worry about." I frowned. The wind blew a strand of hair across my face, and I brushed it away. "Why would I worry about a phone call? You get spam calls all the time." "This might not look like a spam call," he said. He was not looking at me anymore. He was looking at the front door of my house, where the heavy oak barrier stood between us and Graham. "Just if things get weird, or if people act strange, you trust your old dad. Okay, you trust what you know about me, not what you hear." A cold prickle danced down my spine. My father was a man who planned his route to the grocery store to avoid left turns. He did not do cryptic. He did not do drama. "Dad," I asked, stepping closer, "is something wrong? Are you sick?" "No," he said firmly. "I am fine. I just know how these people are. The Ashfords. They like their show. I just do not want you to get rattled if the show goes off script." He squeezed my shoulder one last time, got into his car, and drove away. He drove exactly 25 miles per hour, the legal speed limit of our neighborhood. I stood there on the driveway, clutching a box of old children's books, feeling a sudden, terrifying sense of isolation. Trust what you know about me. I knew my father was honest to a fault. I knew he had never told a lie in his life, even when a lie would have made things easier. So why did it feel like he was preparing for a disaster? I went back inside. Graham was in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water. He had his back to me, but I saw him put his phone down on the counter face down as soon as I entered. "Was that Frank?" Graham asked. He sounded casual, too casual. "Yeah, he just dropped off some books. He didn't want to come in." "No, he said he didn't want to disturb you." Graham turned around. He leaned back against the counter, crossing his ankles. He looked relaxed, but his eyes were darting to the window where my father's car had just been. "Your dad is a funny guy. Very private." "He is just quiet, Graham. You know that." "Right. Quiet." Graham took a sip of water. "Does he talk to you much about his work? Or who he talks to?" The question was odd. My father was a retired municipal clerk who did some consulting on city logistics. His work was boring. We never talked about it because there was nothing to talk about. "No," I said slowly, my risk assessment brain waking up from its hibernation. "Why do you ask?" "No reason," Graham said. "Just making conversation. Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones with the most secrets, right?" He laughed, but the laugh did not reach his eyes. That night, the unease followed me to bed. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the baby kick against my ribs. Graham was asleep beside me, his breathing deep and even. The moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting long, pale shadows across the room. I needed water. I carefully rolled out of bed, trying not to wake him, and made my way downstairs. As I passed the living room, I saw a faint glow. Graham's iPad was sitting on the coffee table. It lit up with a notification, then went dark again. I usually respected Graham's privacy. We knew each other's passcodes. It was a practicality for emergencies, but I never snooped. I did not want to be that wife. But tonight, my father's warning was ringing in my ears. If things get weird, trust what you know. I walked over to the table. I did not touch the iPad. I just stood over it, waiting to see if it would light up again. It didn't. But as I turned to head to the kitchen, I noticed something else. My father's old flip phone charger was plugged into the wall outlet in the corner. Dad had left it here weeks ago during a Sunday dinner, and we kept forgetting to give it back. But next to the charger, there was a sticky note. It was Graham's handwriting. It was a list of 3 times: 2:15 in the afternoon, 2:45 in the afternoon, 3:10 in the afternoon. Sunday's baby shower started at 2 o'clock. I stared at the numbers. They were specific. They were not estimates. They looked like a schedule. Why was my husband writing down a schedule that coincided perfectly with the party? And why was it next to my father's forgotten charger? I heard a floorboard creak upstairs. I quickly moved to the kitchen, poured my water, and hurried back to bed. When I slid under the covers, Graham shifted. "Maisie," he mumbled, half asleep. "Just getting water," I whispered. Okay, go to sleep. Big day soon." He draped an arm over me. It felt heavy. It felt like a restraint. The next day, the day before the party, the house was a whirlwind of activity. Celeste had hired a team of florists to turn our living room into a botanical garden. White hydrangeas, white lilies, white roses. It looked less like a celebration of life and more like a very expensive funeral parlor. "White is the theme," Celeste declared, directing a poor workman who was trying to hang a banner that said, "Baby Ashford" in gold lettering. "Purity, elegance, new beginnings." She turned to me. I was sitting on the sofa, trying to stay out of the way. "Maisie, darling, try not to look so sullen. You are glowing, but the frown lines are ruining the effect." "I am just tired, Celeste," I said. "And my back hurts." "Well, you can rest tomorrow morning, but be ready by 1. The guests will arrive at 2. And please, tell your father to wear a suit. I know he likes his comfortable clothes, but we have the city council chairman coming and half the board of the Meridian Group." "My father will wear what he wears," I said, a sudden spark of defiance flaring in my chest. "He is the grandfather. He is not a prop." Celeste's smile tightened. "Of course, I just want him to feel comfortable. He always looks so out of place among our friends. I am trying to help him blend in." "He doesn't need to blend in," I said. Celeste sighed, a sound of long-suffering martyrdom. "You are just hormonal. I understand. Just make sure he's on time." "He is always on time," I said. That evening, we went to the Ashford estate for a pre-party dinner. It was a tradition, a family-only meal before the public spectacle. The Ashford estate was a sprawling mansion on the cliffs overlooking the harbor. It was beautiful, cold, and imposing. We sat at the long mahogany dining table, Graham, me, Celeste, and Graham's father, Warren Ashford. Warren was the CEO of the group. He was a large man who took up a lot of space and spoke in short, barking sentences. "Market is volatile," Warren said, cutting into his steak. "Materials cost is up 8%. Margins are tight." "We will handle it, Dad," Graham said. "The waterfront project is going to cover the gap." "If we get the bid approved," Warren grunted. "Mayor Price is dragging his feet. He's listening to too many of those audit committee bureaucrats." At the mention of the audit committee, I saw Graham stiffen. He took a long sip of wine. "Donovan Price is a reasonable man," Celeste said smoothly. "He will come around. He is coming to the shower tomorrow, isn't he?" "He said he might stop by," Graham said, "to pay his respects." "Good," Warren said. "We need FaceTime. Informal, friendly." Then, Warren turned his gaze on me. "How is your father? Maisie still pushing papers for the city?" I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth. My father had retired 2 years ago. Warren knew that. He did this on purpose. He liked to remind me that my father was a civil servant, a worker bee, while they were the queens and kings of the hive. "He is retired, Warren," I said. "He consults occasionally, but mostly he enjoys his garden." "Right. Retired. Must be nice. To just stop." Warren laughed. "Ashfords don't stop. We build until we drop." Here, Graham said, raising his glass. I looked at my husband. He was playing the part perfectly, the dutiful son, the ambitious heir. But his eyes were not on his father. He was looking under the table, checking his phone again, and then I saw it. Graham had set his phone on the table for a split second before putting it back in his pocket. The screen was still lit. He wasn't texting. He had the stopwatch app open. He was timing something. My heart hammered against my ribs. The warning from my father, the list of times on the sticky note, the stopwatch, the tension regarding the mayor and the waterfront project. It was all swirling together in a pattern I couldn't quite see, but the shape of it was ugly. I excused myself to use the restroom. I needed to breathe. I walked down the hallway, passing the portraits of Ashford ancestors. They all looked stern, wealthy, and ruthless. I went into the powder room and splashed cold water on my face. "Don't be paranoid, Maisie," I told myself. "Pregnancy hormones are real. You are imagining conspiracies where there are only coincidences." But when I came out of the bathroom, I heard voices from the study. The door was cracked open just an inch. It was Graham and his sister, Maris. Maris was 36, sharp-tongued, and fiercely protective of the family fortune. I hadn't realized she had arrived. "Ready for tomorrow?" Maris was asking. Her voice was a low hiss. "It is set," Graham replied. 2:15, the first one." "And the old man?" "He will be there. He won't know what hit him." "Good," Maris said. "It is about time someone put him in his place. Dad is tired of the roadblocks." "Shh," Graham said. "Maisie is just down the hall." "She won't figure it out," Maris scoffed. "She thinks her dad is a saint. She has no idea what happens in the real world." I backed away, my breath catching in my throat. I moved silently back toward the dining room, my hands trembling. They were talking about my father. They were planning something for tomorrow. 2:15, the first time on the list. My father's text made sense now. If a strange number calls, they weren't just going to humiliate him, they were going to ambush him. And Graham, my husband, the father of the child kicking inside me, was the architect of the trap. I returned to the table and sat down. Graham smiled at me. "You okay, babe? You look a little pale." "I am fine," I lied. My voice was steady, practiced from years of presenting bad risk reports to angry executives. "Just the baby moving around." "Eat some dessert," Celeste said, pushing a plate of chocolate mousse toward me. "You are eating for two." I picked up my spoon. I looked at the mousse. It was rich, dark, and perfectly formed, just like this family. I realized then that my father was right. I couldn't trust anyone in this room. But they had made one mistake. They thought I was just the compliance officer from the wrong side of the tracks who got lucky. They thought I was soft. They forgot that my job wasn't just to find the rules. It was to catch the people who broke them. I took a bite of the mousse. It tasted like ash. "So," I said, looking Graham dead in the eye, "is there anything special planned for the shower tomorrow? Any surprises?" Graham didn't flinch. He didn't blink. "Just gifts, Maisie. Just lots of gifts." "Good," I said. "I hate surprises." Under the table, I put my hand on my stomach. "Hold on, little one." I thought, "Your mom is about to go to war." The Halston house was less of a venue and more of a statement. It was a sprawling, neoclassical estate on the edge of the city, the kind of place where the air conditioning was always set to a temperature that required a cashmere shawl, regardless of the season, for the baby shower. Celeste had rented the solarium. It was a glass-walled cage filled with enough white flowers to bury a small village. I walked in, my hand resting protectively on my stomach, and was immediately assaulted by the scent of lilies. It was overwhelming. Everywhere I looked, there were white hydrangeas, white roses, and white orchids, cascading from gold stands. And in the center of the room, hanging above a tiered cake that looked like a sculpture of a cloud, was a gold-plated sign in cursive script. Baby Ashford. Not baby Wallace Ashford. Not Maisie's baby. Just Ashford. It was a brand acquisition announcement, masquerading as a party. The guests were already arriving. There were about 60 people, mostly women, though the men were beginning to filter in from the bar area. These were the elite of Crown Harbor, the wives of board members, the daughters of investors, the socialites who ran the charity circuit. I recognized maybe 3 of them from my actual life. The rest were strangers who smiled at me with teeth that cost more than my father's car. Celeste saw me from across the room. She was wearing a cream-colored silk suit that made her look like a very expensive, very dangerous candle. She glided over, clapping her hands softly. "There she is," Celeste announced, her voice pitched to carry just enough for the surrounding groups to hear. "The vessel," she laughed, grabbing my shoulders. It was a joke, supposedly. "You look tired, darling," she whispered, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "Did you not sleep? I told you to get a facial. The lighting in here is unforgiving." "I feel fine, Celeste," I said, keeping my smile fixed. "The place looks impressive." "It looks adequate," she corrected. She turned to a woman standing nearby, Mrs. Vance, whose husband owned the largest dealership network in the state. "Helen, you have met Maisie, haven't you? Graham's wife." "Briefly," Mrs. Vance said, looking me up and down. "You work in banking, is that right?" "Compliance and risk management," I said. Celeste waved a hand dismissively. "She is a numbers girl, very practical. We are so lucky Graham found someone so grounded. You know how flighty girls can be these days. But Maisie knows how to keep things steady. She knows her place in the ecosystem." The phrase hung in the air. She knows her place. It sounded like a compliment to the untrained ear. To me, it sounded like a command. Stay down. Be quiet. Be the soil that lets the Ashford flower grow. "Where is Graham?" I asked, needing to change the subject before I said something that would ruin the grounded reputation. "He is by the entrance," Celeste said, greeting the important guests. "Oh, and your father is here." Her tone dropped a few degrees. It went from condescending affection to polite tolerance of a nuisance. "He is over there," she gestured vaguely toward the back corner, near the service entrance for the catering staff. "He insisted on bringing his own gift. I told him we had a registry table, but," she shrugged, "you know how he is." I left her and made my way through the crowd. I felt like a ship navigating through icebergs. I had to dodge questions about my due date, unwanted hands reaching out to touch my belly, and comments about how large I was carrying. I found my father sitting on a small velvet ottoman in the corner, far away from the center of the action. He looked uncomfortable. He was wearing his best suit, a navy blue one that he had bought 5 years ago for a cousin's wedding. It was clean and pressed, but the cut was outdated, a little too boxy for the current fashion. He held a square box on his lap, wrapped in plain blue paper with neat Scotch tape lines. No bow, no ribbons, just a box. "Dad," I breathed, sitting down next to him. The relief of seeing a real human face was immense. "Hey, kiddo," he said, smiling. The tension around his eyes relaxed for a second. "Quite a spread. Huh." "It is a bit much," I admitted. "It is nice," he lied. "Flowers are nice." "You did not have to sit back here," I said. "There are tables up front." "I am fine," he said. "Better view of the room. Besides, I do not want to be in the way of the photographers." He nodded toward a man with a massive camera who was snapping photos of Maris Ashford holding a glass of champagne. Maris was posing with her hip cocked, looking like she was on a magazine cover. Graham appeared a moment later. He was wearing a suit that fit him like a second skin. He looked handsome, polished, and incredibly tense. He was sweating slightly at the temples. "Frank," Graham said, nodding at my father. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," Dad said. He stood up to shake Graham's hand. Graham's grip was quick, almost dismissive. His eyes were not on my father. They were scanning the room, then darting to the phone that was sitting on the small side table next to my father's drink. "Did you drive yourself?" Graham asked. "Yeah," Dad said. "Traffic was light." "Good, good." Graham ran a hand through his hair. "Look, we are going to start the gift opening in about 20 minutes. Mom has a schedule. Just stay close, okay?" "I am not going anywhere." "Graham," Dad said. Graham lingered for a second too long, staring at my father's phone. Then he turned and walked back toward the center of the room, checking his watch. I looked at the time on my own wrist. It was 2:14 in the afternoon. 1 minute until the first time on the list I had found. "Dad," I said softly, "is your phone ringer on?" "Always is," he said, patting his pocket. He took the phone out and set it on the table again. It was an older smartphone, functional but scratched. "Why?" "Just maybe silence it for the speeches." Before he could answer, the phone lit up. It did not ring. It roared. The ringer was set to maximum volume. A jarring, electronic trill that cut through the ambient chatter of the room like a siren. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. In the acoustically perfect glass solarium, the sound was deafening. My father looked surprised. He reached for the phone. I looked at the screen. The letters were large and clear, visible to anyone standing within 5 feet. Mayor Donovan Price. My father's hand froze for a fraction of a second. He saw the name. I saw the name. And Graham, standing 10 feet away, whipped his head around so fast I thought he would snap his neck. "Aren't you going to answer that?" Celeste's voice rang out. She had materialized nearby, holding a glass of sparkling water. She looked at the screen, and her eyebrows shot up. "The mayor? My goodness! Frank!" She laughed. It was a loud, theatrical sound meant to draw an audience. "Is there a pothole he needs you to look at urgently?" Celeste asked. "Or perhaps the city hall toilets are backing up again." A ripple of laughter went through the room. It was polite, cruel laughter, the kind that said, "We know who you are, and it is funny that you are receiving a call from someone who matters." My father's face went stoic. He did not look at Celeste. He did not look at the crowd. He pressed the red button on the screen. "Decline." "Wrong number," he said quietly. "Must be." Celeste chuckled, looking around at her friends. "I cannot imagine Donovan calling you for policy advice, Frank, unless the policy is about how to drive a pickup truck." More laughter. Hot shame burned in my chest. I started to stand up, to say something, but my father put a hand on my arm. His grip was firm. "Sit down," his hand said. "Do not let them see you bleed." "Sorry about the noise," Dad said to the room in general. He put the phone back on the table, face down, but I saw his hand trembling. Just a little. Graham had not laughed. He was staring at the phone with an intensity that was frightening. He looked disappointed. No, not disappointed. He looked thwarted. He caught my eye and quickly looked away. pretending to adjust his cufflinks. "It is fine. Frank," Graham called out, his voice tight. "Just turn it off next time." The party resumed. The hum of conversation returned. But the air had changed. The guests now had a target. They glanced at us, whispering. I could read their lips. The father, the maintenance man. "Wrong number." I leaned in close to my father. "Dad, why is the mayor calling you?" "I told you," he said, his voice flat. "It is nothing." That was not a spam call. Dad, that was his personal line. I recognized the area code. "Maisie, drop it." He took a sip of his iced tea. The glass shook against his teeth. 10 minutes passed. I watched the clock. 2:25, 2:30. Maris Ashford drifted over. She was followed by two of her friends, clones in pastel dresses. Maris held a plate of hors d'oeuvres that she wasn't eating. "So," Maris said, smiling at my father, "I didn't know you were friends with Mayor Price." "Frank." "We are not," Dad said. "That is what I thought," Maris said. She turned to her friends. "Frank used to work for the city, in support services, right?" "Internal logistics and procurement auditing," I said sharply. Maris rolled her eyes. "Right, paperwork for the guys who fix the streetlights. It is sweet, really. At his age, still worrying about city errands, it must be tiring, running around for people who make the actual decisions." "It is honest work," I said, my voice rising. "Oh, I am sure it is," Maris said. "I just mean it is sad. To be at the end of your career and still be the one taking orders instead of giving them, and then to have the mayor call you by mistake. It highlights the gap, doesn't it?" She took a sip of her drink, her eyes gleaming with malice. "But do not worry. Frank, when the baby comes, we will make sure he or she aims a little higher. We want an Ashford legacy, not a support staff legacy." I felt the anger coiling in my stomach, tight and hot. This wasn't just rudeness. This was a systematic dismantling of my father's dignity. They were trying to make him small. They were trying to make him look like a servant in a room full of masters, and Graham was letting it happen. He was standing by the cake, talking to a developer, but his body was angled toward us. He was listening. Then, it happened again. 2:45 in the afternoon, exactly on the dot. My father's phone buzzed on the table, this time, before the ringtone could even fully sound. Graham moved. He didn't just turn. He abandoned his conversation and strode toward us. It was not a walk. It was an interception. His eyes were locked on the phone. "Is that him again?" Graham asked, his voice loud, too loud. "Frank, you really need to answer that. It might be an emergency." He reached out. My husband reached out to grab my father's phone. "I will get it for you," Graham said, his hand inches from the device. My father was faster. He snatched the phone off the table and held it against his chest. He looked up at Graham, and for the first time, I saw the steel that lay beneath Frank Wallace's gray exterior. "I said no," Dad said. The phone continued to ring in his hand, muffled against his suit jacket, but still audible. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Graham froze. His hand was still extended. He looked like a child caught reaching for a cookie jar, but his expression was not innocent. It was desperate. "I am just trying to help." "Frank," Graham said, his smile stretching thin over his teeth. "If the mayor is calling twice, it must be important. You do not want to be rude to the mayor. Do not you? Especially with everything going on." "Everything going on?" I asked. "What is going on?" Graham blinked. "Nothing. Just the city, you know." The phone stopped ringing. Silence descended on our corner again. But this time, it wasn't funny. It was heavy. Dad looked at me. He didn't look at Graham. He didn't look at Maris. He looked straight into my eyes. His expression was terrifyingly calm. It was the look of a man who realizes he is in a room full of wolves, and he is the only one who brought a weapon. Even if he doesn't want to use it, don't trust them. His eyes said, "Do not trust your husband. Do not trust his sister." Do not trust the flowers. I think, Dad said slowly, that was a wrong number too. You are terrible with technology, Frank, Maris scoffed, breaking the tension. You probably have your contacts mixed up. Probably the pizza guy. The group laughed again, but it was forced. They sensed something was wrong. Let's open gifts, Celeste announced loudly from the front of the room, clapping her hands. Come on, Maisie, sit in the big chair. Frank, bring your little box up. Let's get it out of the way first. Get it out of the way. I stood up. My legs felt heavy. I looked at Graham. He was typing furiously on his phone. He wasn't texting a friend. I knew that posture. He was reporting in. Come on, Dad, I said, taking my father's arm. Let's go open your present. I am right behind you, he said, as we walked toward the center of the room, past the judging eyes and the false smiles. I felt a vibration against my own leg. I had my phone in the pocket of my maternity dress. I pulled it out discreetly. It was a text from a number I didn't have saved. But the preview message made my blood run cold. Tell him to answer the next one, or we release the file. I looked around the room. Everyone was looking at me, smiling, clapping. I looked at Graham. He was putting his phone back in his pocket. The game had started, and I was the only one who didn't know the rules. The seating arrangement for the gift opening was a masterclass in social engineering. In the center of the room, Celeste had placed a high-backed velvet armchair that looked like a throne. That was for me. Flanking it were two slightly smaller, but still regal, chairs for herself and Graham. Then, there was a semicircle of plush seats for the inner circle Maris, the aunts, the wives of the board members, and then, there was the spot for my father. Frank, darling, Celeste said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she guided him by the elbow. Why don't you sit right here? She pointed to a folding chair that had been set up near the service entrance, right next to the swinging doors where the catering staff was moving back and forth with trays of champagne and appetizers. It was outside the circle. It was in the periphery. It was the kind of seat you gave to a hired photographer or a distant cousin you hoped would leave early. It is much better for you here, Celeste continued, patting his arm. You are close to the bar. I know how parched you must get. And this way. You have plenty of legroom. We wouldn't want you feeling cramped among all the ladies, would we? My father looked at the chair, then at Celeste. He didn't blink. He didn't argue. He just gave a small, tight nod. This is fine. Celeste, he said. Thank you. He sat down. The visual was striking. He looked like a guard dog posted at the gate, separated from the feast. I started to get up from my throne. Actually, I think there is room next to me if we just move the— Sit down, Maisie, Graham said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. He wasn't pushing me down, but the weight of his hand was heavy. Mom has the feng shui all worked out. Don't mess up her flow. You know how she gets. He is your father-in-law. Graham, I whispered, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. He looks like he's in timeout. He is fine. He prefers the background. Stop projecting. Graham's dismissal was casual, practiced. He adjusted his tie and smiled at the room, playing the part of the doting, expectant father, while his hand remained heavy on my shoulder, keeping me in place. As the first few gifts were opened, cashmere blankets, silver rattles, imported wooden toys that cost more than my first car. The microaggressions began to fly. They weren't loud insults. They were quiet. Smiling comments, delivered with a toast or a laugh, designed to cut without leaving a mark. Graham's Aunt Beatrice, a woman who wore pearls the size of golf balls, stood up to offer a small toast. She held a glass of vintage sparkling wine in one hand and gestured toward my father with the other. To the grandfather, she announced. Her eyes crinkled warmly, but her gaze was flat. It is so wonderful that you could be here. Frank, truly. I was just saying to Celeste how comforting it must be for you to know that this baby is coming into the Ashford fold. She took a sip, letting the silence stretch just long enough to be awkward. I mean, she continued, raising a child is so expensive these days. The schools, the travel, the connections. It must be such a relief for you to know that you do not have to worry about providing any of that. The Ashfords will take care of everything. You can just enjoy the visits, without the burden." The room murmured in agreement. Yes, how lucky for him. He doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to matter. It was a statement of ownership. They were telling him that his role was obsolete before the baby was even born. "I managed to raise Maisie just fine," my father said. His voice was low, but it carried. Beatrice laughed, a sharp, barking sound. "Oh, and you did a lovely job. Frank, Maisie is wonderful. She is so resilient. But we want this little one to thrive, not just survive. Right?" I felt the blood rushing to my face. I gripped the arms of my chair so hard my knuckles turned white. I looked at Graham, waiting for him to defend us, to defend the man who had raised his wife. Graham just swirled his drink. "Aunt B has had a few too many mimosas," he whispered to me. "Ignore her. She is insulting him, Graham. She is saying we have resources. Take the compliment. Maisie." Then came Maris. My sister-in-law had been prowling the perimeter of the room with her phone out, documenting the event for her social media following. She stopped near my father, who was sitting quietly with his hands on his knees, watching me open a box of designer onesies. "Frank," Maris chirped, "smile for the story." She didn't wait for him to agree. She crouched down next to him, phone raised high, angling the camera so that it captured my father's off-the-rack suit against the backdrop of the lavish dessert table. "Say Grandpa Duty," she squealed. My father offered a polite, strained smile. Maris snapped the photo, then immediately stood up and started typing. I watched her thumbs fly across the screen. A moment later, my own phone buzzed in my lap. I had notifications turned on for her posts. I looked down at the screen. The photo was unflattering. The lighting made my father look old and gray, washed out next to the vibrant flowers. But it was the caption that felt like a slap. "Grandpa Frank ready for logistics. Someone has to assemble the cribs and drive the moving trucks. Baby Ashford takes a village. Even towers. The little people, even the little people." I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with pregnancy. "Graham," I hissed, showing him the phone. "Look at this. Tell her to take it down. Now." Graham glanced at the screen and shrugged. "It is a joke. Maisie, little people means the village. You know, like helpers. It means peasants, Graham, and you know it." "You are being hysterical," he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Stop looking for reasons to be offended. You are ruining the vibe. Just smile and open the damn breast pump." I looked at him, really looked at him. This was the man who held my hair back when I had morning sickness. This was the man who had promised to love and honor me. And right now, he was looking at me with the cold, annoyed eyes of a handler dealing with a difficult asset. And then, the third ring happened. It was exactly 3:10 in the afternoon. The sound cut through the room like a knife. My father's phone, still on the table next to his folding chair, began to buzz and chime with that aggressive, default ringtone, Mayor Donovan Price. The name flashed on the screen again. The room went silent. The laughter died. Aunt Beatrice lowered her glass. Maris stopped typing. Celeste, who had been cooing over a silver spoon, straightened her back, her eyes narrowed into slits. "Frank," she said, her voice icy. "I thought you said it was a wrong number." My father didn't answer her. He was looking at the phone. Then, he looked up. He didn't look at Celeste. He didn't look at Graham, who was staring at the phone with that same predatory intensity I had seen earlier. My father looked at me. It was a long, sustained look. In his eyes, I saw a conflict I didn't understand. He looked like a man weighing the cost of his next breath. He looked sad, but resolved. It was the look of a parent who realizes he can no longer protect his child by staying silent, but speaking up might cause the very explosion he fears. He reached out. His hand was steady now. He pressed the decline button. The ringing stopped. "Excuse me," my father said. He stood up abruptly. I need to use the restroom. He turned and walked toward the hallway, moving with a speed that belied his age. Dad, I called out. Let him go, Graham said, grabbing my wrist. He is probably embarrassed. The mayor calling him, it is obviously a prank caller. Maisie, some buddy of his messing around. I am going to check on him, I said. I pulled my wrist free from Graham's grip. It was harder than it should have been. I stood up, ignoring Celeste's sharp intake of breath, and waddled as fast as I could after my father. I caught up to him in the hallway near the coat check. The hallway was empty, the noise of the party muffled by the heavy oak doors. My father wasn't in the bathroom. He was standing by the window, his phone pressed to his ear. He wasn't talking. He was listening. I stopped a few feet away, my shoes silent on the thick carpet. He had the volume up loud. Or maybe his hearing wasn't what it used to be. Or maybe, in his stress, he had accidentally hit the speaker button. I heard the voice on the other end. It wasn't a live person. It was a voicemail. Frank, the council meets tonight at 7. We are running out of time. If you have the documents, you need to bring them. They are going to push the vote through. I can't hold them off without the proof. Call me back. The voice was unmistakable. It was Donovan Price. I had heard him give speeches on television 100 times. That baritone, commanding voice was etched into the city's consciousness. My father lowered the phone. He let out a breath that sounded like a rattle in his chest. Dad, I whispered. He spun around. His face was pale. Maisie, he said. You should be inside. That was the mayor, I said. That was not a wrong number, and he is talking about a vote, the waterfront vote. My father stepped closer to me. He took both my hands in his. His hands were cold. Maisie, listen to me, he said. Do not ask me about this here, not in this house, not with these people. What documents? Dad, what is going on? Graham is acting strange. You are acting strange. I feel like I'm going crazy. You are not crazy, he said fiercely. You are the sanest person here. That is why you need to go back in there. Sit in that chair and smile until your face hurts. Do not let them see you question anything. Why? Because, he said, glancing at the door to the party. They are watching, and I need to make sure you are safe before I do what I have to do. What do you have to do? I have to be a father, he said simply. Now go. He turned me around and gently pushed me toward the door. I stumbled slightly, my mind reeling. The vote, the documents, safe. I walked back into the solarium. The party was in full swing again. Someone had put on jazz music. Celeste was standing by the cake, holding a microphone. She had decided it was time for speeches. Welcome back. Maisie, she called out cheerfully as I entered. Just in time. She gestured for me to return to my seat. I sat down. I felt numb. I felt like I was watching a play from behind a glass wall. I just wanted to say a few words, Celeste began, her voice amplified, echoing off the glass walls. About family and legacy. She smiled at the crowd. The Ashford name means something in this city. It means strength. It means vision. We build things that last. And this baby. She placed a hand on my stomach, not asking for permission. This baby is the future of that legacy. She paused for dramatic effect. We all have high hopes. We hope he gets Graham's eyes. We hope he gets his grandfather Warren's business sense. And, she gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. We hope he gets my patience. The crowd chuckled. But mostly, Celeste said, her voice hardening just a fraction. We hope he inherits the Ashford blood, the drive, the excellence, because let's be honest, the world has enough mediocrity. We do not want him to be common. We want him to be extraordinary. We want him to be one of us. She didn't look at my father, who had quietly slipped back into the room and taken his seat by the service door. She didn't have to. The word common hung in the air like a guillotine blade. It was a direct rejection of my DNA, of my father's life, of everything I was before I signed a marriage certificate. The applause was polite but enthusiastic. I felt tears pricking my eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pure, distilled fury. I looked at Graham. I needed him to look at me. I needed him to roll his eyes, to squeeze my hand, to acknowledge that his mother had just called half of our child's genetic makeup mediocre, but Graham wasn't looking at me. He was looking down at his phone, hidden in his lap beneath the napkin. From my angle, I could see his screen perfectly. The brightness was up. He was sending a text message. I focused. I squinted through the tears. The recipient was saved as D. Price Office. My heart stopped. Why was my husband texting the mayor's office? I read the message he had just typed. He is here. He is agitated. The phone calls are working. Right on plan. Graham hit send. He put the phone in his pocket, looked up, and started clapping for his mother's speech. The room spun. The white flowers blurred into a wall of snow. My father wasn't being harassed by the mayor. My father was being baited, and my husband, the man clapping beside me. The father of my child, was the one pulling the trigger. The silence in our house after the baby shower was heavy, but it was not empty. It was the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. We had returned from the Halston house with a car trunk full of Gifts silver rattles, organic cotton swaddles, and a high-tech bassinet that probably cost more than my father's monthly pension. Graham was in high spirits. He hummed as he carried the boxes inside, stacking them in the nursery with a performance of paternal joy that would have convinced anyone watching from the street. But I was not watching from the street. I was watching from the inside. "Great day, right?" Graham asked, wiping a smudge of dirt from one of the boxes. "Mom really outdid herself. And hey, even your dad seemed present." "He was present," I said, kicking off my heels. My feet were swollen, throbbing in time with the headache that had started the moment I read Graham's text to the mayor's office. He was definitely there. "You need to relax, babe," Graham said, kissing my forehead. His lips felt cold. "Why don't you lie down? I'm going to jump in the shower. I feel gross. Too much cologne from Aunt Beatrice." "Okay," I said. "I will just check my messages." Graham went upstairs. A moment later, I heard the heavy thud of the bathroom door closing, followed by the rush of water. I sat on the living room sofa, but I did not relax. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the Instagram icon. I needed to see it. I needed to see exactly how they had framed the narrative. I opened Maris's story. It had been up for 3 hours. The first slide was a video of the decor, panning over the white flowers with the caption, "Heavenly." The next was a selfie of Maris and Celeste, filtered to perfection. And then, there it was, the photo of my father. He looked small in the frame, sitting on that folding chair by the service door. He was looking down at his hands. Maris had added a sticker of a cartoon man sweeping with a broom. The caption read, "When you bring the help to the party, but forget to give them a uniform." I swiped up to see the replies. Maris, in her arrogance, had posted a screenshot of the DMs she was getting as a follow-up story. "LMAO, who is that? Is that the grandpa? He looks like he is waiting for the bus. So awkward. Bless his heart." They were laughing. 60 people who had drunk champagne on my dime, or rather, on the Ashford dime that was supposedly mine by marriage, were laughing at the man who had taught me how to ride a bike and balance a checkbook. They saw him as a prop, a character actor in the Ashford family drama, cast as the peasant. My phone buzzed in my hand, startling me. "Incoming call, Dad." I answered immediately. "Dad, are you okay? I saw the... Did you lock the front door?" His voice cut me off. It was not his usual warm, rumbling tone. It was sharp, clipped. It was the voice of a man checking a perimeter. "What?" I asked, confused. "The front door, Maisie, the deadbolt. Did you engage it?" Yes, I think so. Graham just brought the boxes in." "Check it," he commanded. "Now." I walked to the door. The deadbolt was unlatched. I turned it, hearing the heavy click of metal sliding into place. "It is locked now," I said. "Dad, you are scaring me. What is happening? Where is Graham?" He is in the shower. I can hear the water running. Good, Dad said. Keep him there if you can. Or just stay away from him for a bit. Just for tonight. Dad, stop. You have to tell me. Was that really the mayor on the phone? The voicemail about the council meeting. There was a pause on the line. I could hear traffic in the background, like he was parked on the shoulder of a highway, somewhere loud but anonymous. Maisie, he said, his voice dropping lower. I cannot talk about it on the phone, not on this line, and definitely not on yours. They have the numbers. Who has the numbers? Just tonight is going to be long, he said. If the phone rings again, if you see that name, Mayor Price, do not answer it. Do not answer it for me. Do not answer it for yourself. Do not let Graham answer it. Dad. I love you, kiddo. Trust your gut. You are smarter than them. Remember that. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A frantic rhythm that felt dangerous in my condition. Trust your gut. My gut told me that my husband was in the shower washing off the guilt of a betrayal. I looked at the coffee table. Graham had left the family iPad there. It was the device we used for household management grocery lists, streaming services, the baby registry, but Graham also used it for work emails when he didn't want to go into his home office. I walked over to the iPad. I pressed the home button, passcode. I typed in the date of our wedding. It unlocked. I didn't go to the browser. I went straight to the mail app. I knew Graham's habits. He never fully closed the app. He just minimized it. The inbox was open. The most recent email was from 20 minutes ago. It was from a sender named W, Ashford Executive, Graham's father. Subject, tonight's council agenda. Urgent prep. I clicked on it. The body of the email was brief. Attached is the revised risk assessment for the waterfront vote. Price is wobbling. We need to apply the pressure point tonight. Ensure the narrative holds. There was a PDF attachment titled City Waterfront Redevelopment Bid Review. Internal use only. My hands were shaking as I tapped the attachment. It opened. It was a dense document, full of legal jargon, projected profit margins, and zoning maps. I scrolled past the financial projections. I was looking for names. I found a section titled Obstruction Analysis Mitigation. It was a list of city council members and municipal employees who had raised objections to the Ashford Meridian Group's bid. Most of them had notes next to their names like resolved or negotiating. And then, halfway down the page, I saw it. Conflict Concern Wallace. F. My breath hitched. Under my father's name, there was a paragraph. Subject is a former internal procurement auditor with retained influence over the oversight committee. Subject has flagged irregularities in the subcontractor selection process. Unlike other targets, subject has refused standard incentives. Strategy shift required. Character discrediting via familial pressure. Utilize financial instability narrative. Leverage daughter's position to create a conflict of interest that forces recusal. I read the line again. Leverage daughter's position. Me. I was the leverage. I looked at the date on the document. It was created 2 months ago. They had been planning this for 2 months. While I was picking out nursery colors, while I was knitting booties, while I was thanking them for their generosity, they were building a trap for my father. And they were using me as the bait. Why? Why would a billion-dollar company care about one retired man because Frank Wallace was the only one who saw the irregularities? My father was the man who checked the receipts. And if the Ashfords were cutting corners on a project this size, a project worth hundreds of millions of dollars, my father was the one man who could prove it. I closed the PDF. I needed to know more. I needed to know how they planned to leverage me. I checked Graham's sent folder. There was an email sent 3 days ago to the family accountant. Subject tax deduction. Charity allocation. The email read, Please finalize the donation to the Ashford Family Foundation as discussed. Ensure it is backdated to the fiscal quarter closing. Attribution, Maisie Wallace Ashford. A donation. In my name, I frowned. We had separate finances for the most part. but we had a joint savings account for the house and the baby. I quickly opened the banking app on the iPad. I navigated to the joint account. I scrolled down to the transactions from last week. There it was, a transfer of $5,000. The recipient, Ashford Family Foundation. The date, the Tuesday of last week. I remembered that Tuesday. I remembered it vividly because I had the flu. I had been in bed all day with a fever of 101. I hadn't touched my phone. I hadn't touched a computer. I had slept for 18 hours straight. Graham had been so sweet that day. He had brought me soup. He had stayed home from work to take care of me. I clicked on the transaction details. It showed a digital signature authorization. M. Wallace Ashford. My stomach twisted violently. He had used my thumbprint, or he had known my password. While I was sleeping, shivering with fever, my husband had logged into our account and transferred $5,000 of our money we were saving for the baby into his family's private foundation. Why $5,000 was nothing to the Ashfords. It was pocket change. Why steal it from us? Then it clicked. The email. Leveraged daughter's position to create a conflict of interest. If my father was investigating the Ashford Meridian Group, he had to be impartial. But if his daughter Me was a major donor to the Ashfords' private charity, it created a financial tie. It made it look like our family was in bed with the Ashfords. It compromised my father's integrity. If Frank Wallace tried to expose them, they could pull up this receipt. They could say, "How can he be objective? His daughter is funding our foundation. This is a family vendetta, not an audit." They had stolen my money to buy my father's silence, or worse, to destroy his credibility. I heard the water shut off upstairs. Panic flared in my chest. I had to close everything. I double-clicked the home button and swiped the apps closed. Mail, bank, PDF. I wiped the screen with my sleeve to remove my fingerprints. I set the iPad back on the coffee table, exactly at the angle I had found it. I sat back on the couch and picked up a magazine. My hands were trembling so hard the pages rattled. I forced myself to take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale, compliance officer mode, gather evidence, assess risk. I needed the files. I couldn't just see them. I needed copies. But I couldn't send them to myself that would leave a digital trail Graham would see. I looked at my phone. I opened the voice memo app. I couldn't record the iPad screen, but I could record what I knew. I whispered into the phone, speaking fast. Date Sunday. Time 6:15 in the evening. Found email on Graham's iPad regarding conflict concern Frank Wallace. Ashfords are targeting Dad to stop him from exposing irregularities in the waterfront bid. Also found unauthorized wire transfer of $5,000 from joint account to Ashford Foundation dated last Tuesday. I did not authorize this. Graham likely accessed my account while I was incapacitated with the flu. This is a setup to create a conflict of interest for Dad. I stopped the recording. I saved the file as grocery list. Footsteps on the stairs. Graham came down. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair damp. He looked clean. He looked innocent. "Feeling better?" he asked, walking into the living room. "A little," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin and brittle. "Did you enjoy your shower?" "Yeah, needed it." He flopped down on the chair opposite me. He picked up the iPad. My heart stopped. He unlocked it. He stared at the screen for a second. Then he looked at me. "Did you use this?" he asked. "No," I lied. "I was just reading." He tapped the screen. "Battery is lower than I thought." He set it down. He didn't know. Not yet. "So," Graham said, leaning forward, "about your dad. I was thinking maybe we should go over there tomorrow. Check on him. He seemed really rattled by those calls." "You want to check on him?" I asked. "Yeah, he is family. Maybe we can help him sort things out. You know, if he is in trouble with the city or something." He was fishing. He wanted to see if the pressure was working. He wanted to see if Frank had cracked. "I think he's fine, Graham," I said. "He is tough. Everyone has a breaking point. Maisie," Graham said softly. "Even Frank." He stood up. "I am going to make a drink. Do you want water?" "Yes," I said. Please. As he walked to the kitchen, I looked at the clock. It was 6:30 in the evening. The voicemail on my father's phone had said the council meeting was tonight at 7, 30 minutes. My father was going to that meeting. He was going to face them. And he was going alone. I couldn't let him do that, but I couldn't leave. Graham would stop me. He was watching the doors. He was watching me. Then, my phone buzzed again. A text. It wasn't my father. It was an automated alert from my bank. Alert: second attempt to transfer funds denied due to daily limit. Amount $5,000. Recipient Ashford Family Foundation. He had tried to do it again, just now, from the kitchen. He wasn't making a drink. He was doubling down. He needed more leverage. I stood up. I wasn't the victim here. I was the compliance officer, and I had just caught the perpetrator in the act. I walked to the kitchen doorway. Graham was standing there, tapping on his phone. "Graham," I said. He jumped. He shoved his phone into his pocket. "Hey, water is coming right up." "I do not want water," I said. "I want to know why you are so interested in the waterfront project." His smile faltered. "What I am not. That is Dad's thing." "Is it?" I asked. "Because you seem very invested in who calls my father about it." Graham's eyes went cold. The mask slipped. Just for a second. "Maisie," he said, his voice dropping that fake, gentle tone. "Do not ask questions that you do not want the answers to. It is better for the baby if you just trust me." "I trust facts, Graham," I said. "And the fact is, my father is not a liar. But I am starting to wonder about everyone else." I turned and walked back to the living room before he could reply. I needed to separate myself. I needed a plan. I sat down and texted my father. One word: survive. And then I texted the only other person I knew I could trust, my old mentor from the firm, Nora Keene, who was now one of the fiercest divorce and liability attorneys in the state. "Nora, I need a consult. Emergency, fraud, coercion. It is the Ashfords." I hit send. The war had moved from the party to my living room, and I was done playing nice. The location my father chose was a diner called the Iron Skillet, situated off exit 42 of the interstate. It was the kind of place that trucker maps highlighted and food critics ignored. It smelled of burnt coffee, bacon grease, and old vinyl. It was perfect because it was the last place on earth anyone would look for a member of the Ashford family. I arrived at 10 o'clock in the morning. I had called in sick to Juniper Ridge Financial, claiming a migraine, and told Graham I was going to spend the day in bed with the blinds drawn. I had even staged the bedroom pillows arranged to look like a sleeping body under the duvet, the humidifier running before slipping out the back door and taking an Uber 2 towns over. I did not trust my car. I did not know if Graham had put a tracker on it. And frankly, I was no longer willing to take the risk. Frank Wallace was sitting in a booth in the far back corner, his back against the wall so he could see the entrance. He was wearing his gray windbreaker and a baseball cap pulled low. On the table in front of him sat a cup of black coffee and a plate of toast that he had not touched. When he saw me, he did not smile. He scanned the area behind me, checking for followers, before nodding for me to sit. "You took a cab?" he asked, his voice low. "Yes," I said, sliding into the booth. The vinyl squeaked beneath me. "I paid cash. Dad, stop looking at the door. We are alone. In my line of work, Maisie, you are never alone until the paperwork is filed and the door is locked," he said. "Your line of work," I repeated. "Let's start there, because according to my husband and his family, your line of work is fixing potholes and organizing janitorial schedules. But according to the voicemail I heard yesterday, you are advising the mayor on a multi-million-dollar project. So, who are you?" "Dad." Frank took a sip of coffee. He grimaced at the taste. He looked tired. The lines around his eyes were deeper than I remembered, etched by stress rather than age. "I am a procurement integrity officer," he said. "Or I was. I retired from the full-time role 2 years ago, but the city kept me on a retainer as a special consultant for high-risk contracts." I stared at him. Integrity officer. You told me you worked in logistics. I do, he said. I handle the logistics of truth. My job was never about fixing the roads. Maisie, my job was to make sure that the companies we paid to fix the roads were actually buying the asphalt they billed us for. I audit the bids. I check the background of the subcontractors. I make sure that when the city spends $1, 50 cents of it does not end up in a politician's pocket. It made sense. It made perfect sense. My father's obsession with punctuality, his hatred of waste, his meticulous way of organizing his own receipts, it wasn't just a personality quirk, it was a professional hazard. The waterfront project, I said. That is what this is about. The Crown Harbor waterfront redevelopment, he corrected. $300 million in city funds, plus state grants. It is the biggest contract the city has issued in 20 years. And the Ashfords want it, I said. The Ashfords need it, Frank said. Ashford Meridian Group is leveraged to the hilt. They expanded too fast into the commercial sector right before the market cooled. I have seen their financials. Maisie, not the ones they publish in the glossy brochures, the real ones. They are bleeding cash. If they do not get this contract, if they do not get that injection of public money, the company is insolvent within 18 months. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the diner's air conditioning. So they are desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things, he said. And Warren Ashford is a desperate man. And the mayor, I asked. Why is he calling you? Why not the current integrity officer? Frank sighed. He rubbed his face with his hands, the sound of his rough skin against his stubble scratching in the quiet booth. I tried to recuse myself, he said. The moment I heard Ashford Meridian was the front-runner, I went to Donovan Price. I told him, my daughter is married to the CEO's son. I cannot touch this file. It is a conflict of interest. Donovan understood. He assigned it to my replacement, a guy named Davids. What happened to Davids? Davids bought a vacation home in the Caymans 3 weeks ago, Frank said flatly, on a civil servant's salary, and suddenly, the red flags in the Ashford proposal started disappearing from the reports. Donovan isn't stupid. He knows Davids was compromised, but he cannot prove it yet, and he cannot stop the vote without a verified audit report stating that the bid is flawed. So he called you, I said. He called me because he knows I am the only one left in that department who cannot be bought, Frank said. He looked at me, his eyes fierce. He begged me, Maisie. He said, Frank, they are going to loot the city treasury, and I cannot stop them without you. I told him no. I told him I had to protect my family. But they did not leave you alone, I whispered. No, he said. They decided that if they couldn't buy me, and they couldn't ignore me, they would destroy me. I leaned forward, keeping my voice to a whisper. I found something. Dad, last night, on Graham's iPad, there was a document. It listed you as a conflict concern, and it talked about creating a conflict of interest using me. Frank's face did not register surprise. It registered a profound, heartbreaking sorrow. I know, he said. You know, I figured it out when the transfers started, he said. Small amounts at first, then bigger. Money moving from your accounts into their foundation. It is a classic setup. Maisie, it is called a straw donor scheme, but reversed. If I submit a report saying the Ashfords are corrupt, they will leak the financial records. They will say, look, Frank Wallace's daughter is a major donor to our charity. He is part of the family. He is trying to extort us for more money, or he is trying to manipulate the stock price for his own benefit. They turned me from a whistleblower into a crook. Graham took $5,000 from our joint account, I said, my voice shaking. He did it while I was sick with the flu. He used my fingerprint to authorize it. Frank reached across the table and covered my hand with his. His grip was warm and solid. I am so sorry, Maisie. I wanted to keep you out of this. I thought if I just stayed quiet, if I just declined the calls, they would find another way to get the contract and leave us be. But they are greedy. They want the money and they want insurance. I looked down at our joined hands. Does Graham know? I asked. I needed to hear him say it. I needed to know if my husband was a pawn or a player. Does Graham know what you do? I clarified. Does he know you are the one standing in his way? Frank looked at me for a long time. He didn't answer immediately. He took a breath, held it, and released it slowly. Maisie, he said gently, Graham is the vice president of operations. He signs off on the subcontractor lists. He is the one who hired the private investigators to dig into my background 2 months ago. The air left my lungs. He investigated you. He ordered a full background check, Frank said. Financials, property records, medical history. He knows exactly who I am. He knows I am the guy who shut down the North Side Bridge project 5 years ago because the concrete was substandard. He knows I do not bend. He married me, I said, the realization landing like a physical blow. He married me 3 years ago. Did he know then? No, Frank said. I do not think so. I think he fell in love with you. Maisie, I really do. You are lovable. You are brilliant. But Graham is an Ashford first and a husband second. When the business got in trouble and he realized his father-in-law was the obstacle, he made a choice. He chose the contract, I said. He chose the family name, Frank corrected. To them, it is the same thing. I pulled my hand away. I felt cold. I felt a coldness that started in my marrow and radiated out to my skin. The man I slept next to, the man who was currently texting me asking if I needed ginger tea for my migraine, was actively working to frame my father for corruption. So what do we do? I asked. My voice was steady now. The tears were gone. Tears were for people who had hope. I didn't have hope. I had a strategy to build. I have the evidence of the transfer. I recorded my findings. I have the email. You cannot use the email, Frank said. It is inadmissible. You accessed it without authorization on a device that isn't solely yours. A good lawyer, and they have armies of them, would get it thrown out and then countersue you for corporate espionage. They would paint you as the unstable, spying wife. Then what? We need them to admit it, Frank said. We need them to say it out loud. We need to prove that the conflict of interest was manufactured by them, not by us. He reached into the pocket of his windbreaker. He pulled out a small, silver device. It was an old digital voice recorder, the kind with physical buttons. I had a meeting with Davids yesterday, Frank said. Before the party, he was trying to warn me off. He was wearing a wire for them. I suspect, but I was recording too. And Davids, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. He played me a voicemail he got from Celeste Ashford. She was instructing him on how to handle the paperwork for the donation. Frank placed the recorder on the table. He pressed the play button. The audio was grainy, mixed with the sound of wind, as if recorded in a parking lot, but the voice was unmistakable. It was Celeste. It was the same voice that had toasted to Ashford blood yesterday. Listen to me, Davids. Celeste's voice hissed from the tiny speaker. Stop worrying about the legality. The fund transfer is done. My daughter-in-law signed it, or at least her digital ID did. If anyone asks, if the board questions the source, we just say she is emotional. She is pregnant. She wanted to help the family, if needed. Just blame it on hormones. Nobody questions a pregnant woman acting irrationally. Just make sure Frank sees the receipt. He will know we have him. Click. Frank stopped the recording. Blame it on hormones, I repeated. The phrase echoed in my head. It was the ultimate dismissal. It was the weaponization of my biology. They weren't just stealing my money. They were stealing my sanity. They were pre-writing the script for my breakdown so that if I ever spoke up, I would sound like a hysterical woman. She thinks I am weak, I said. She thinks I am just a vessel. She thinks you are alone, Frank said. She thinks you are going to protect Graham because he is your husband. She thinks you will sacrifice your old dad to keep your fancy life. He looked at me. Are you going to prove her right? Maisie? No, I said. Good. But listen to me carefully, Frank said. He leaned in, his face inches from mine. You cannot explode. You cannot go home and scream at Graham. You cannot throw a vase. You have to be the Ice Queen. You have to be exactly who they think you are. Quiet, compliant, and oblivious until we are ready to strike. I can do that, I said. I work in risk management. Dad, I know how to keep a poker face. This is not poker, Frank said. This is a bear trap, and we have to stick our hands in it to disarm it. The vote is tonight, I asked. No, Frank said. The voicemail you heard, that was Price trying to force a meeting, but the vote was delayed. The council got spooked by my appearance at the party. They pushed the vote to Friday. The public hearing. Friday, I said. 3 days. 3 days, Frank agreed. 3 days for them to finalize the fake paper trail against me, and 3 days for us to bury them. How? I need the original digital logs, Frank said. I need proof that the transfer was initiated from a device with Graham's IP address, not yours. I need the metadata. If we can get that, and combine it with this recording, we can prove fraud, we can prove coercion, and we can blow the waterfront bid out of the water. I can get the logs, I said. I know his passwords. I know where he backs up his data. It is dangerous, Maisie. I am already in danger. Dad, I am living with a man who stole from me. Frank nodded slowly. He put the recorder back in his pocket. Then he reached into his wallet and pulled out a $20 bill. He placed it on the table for the coffee he hadn't drunk. One more thing, he said. What? If things go sideways, he said, looking at my stomach. If they find out you know you leave, you do not pack a bag, you do not argue, you get in the car, and you drive to the police station. Do you understand me? I understand. You are a mother now, Maisie, he said softly. Or you will be soon. That means you do not fight for yourself anymore. You fight for the little one, and the best way to fight is to win. We will win, I said. Frank stood up. He adjusted his cap. Go out the back, he said. Wait 5 minutes after I leave. And Maisie. Yeah. Happy baby shower, he said, a dry, sad smile touching his lips. Sorry the gift was lousy. The gift was perfect, I said. You gave me the truth. He turned and walked out of the diner, blending instantly into the gray morning. I sat in the booth for exactly 5 minutes, watching the second hand on the clock above the counter tick away the seconds of my old life. When I stood up, I wasn't Maisie Ashford, the lucky wife. I was Maisie Wallace, the auditor, and I had a file to complete. I did not go home and cry into a pillow. I did not call my friends to complain about my mother-in-law. I did not throw a vase against the wall to release my anger. Those were the reactions of a heartbroken wife. And I was no longer that woman. I was a compliance officer who had discovered a massive internal breach, and I had work to do. I went straight to my home office. I locked the door. I opened my laptop, my personal one, not the one Graham had access to, and I created a new encrypted folder. I named it simply Wallace Ashford Timeline. Then, I began to populate the file. I worked with the cold, mechanical efficiency that had earned me 2 promotions at Juniper Ridge Financial. I did not let myself feel the betrayal. Feelings were variables I could not control. Evidence was data I could use. First, the screenshot of Maris's Instagram story. I saved it with a timestamp. Exhibit a public humiliation and character discrediting of Frank Wallace. Second, the voice memo I had recorded regarding the email on Graham's iPad. Exhibit B, intent to manufacture conflict of interest. Third, the bank alert regarding the unauthorized transfer of $5,000. Exhibit C, financial theft and identity fraud. Fourth, the recording my father had given me of Celeste instructing Davids to blame my hormones. Exhibit D, conspiracy to falsify records. I printed everything. Digital copies were good, but physical copies were insurance. I put the papers in a plain manila envelope. I taped it shut. Then, I made a phone call. Nora, I said when she picked up, I need an emergency consult. Not for a client. For me. Nora Keene was a partner at a boutique law firm in the city that specialized in high-asset divorces and financial disentanglement. She was 50 years old, wore sharp blazers, and had a reputation for shredding prenuptial agreements like confetti. She had been a senior mentor to me when I first started in the industry, before she switched to family law. "I have an opening at 2 o'clock, Nora said. She did not ask why. She heard the tone of my voice. "Come to the back entrance. I will clear the room." At 2 o'clock sharp, I sat in Nora's office. It was a sterile room with glass walls that frosted over with the touch of a button. I laid the manila envelope on her desk. Nora put on her glasses. She read the timeline. She listened to the recording. She looked at the bank transfer screenshot. She did not gasp. She did not look shocked. She just clicked her pen, over and over again. "This is not just a bad marriage, Maisie," Nora said, her voice dry. "This is a criminal enterprise. They are using your identity to launder a bribe." "I know," I said. "They want to frame my father, if the waterfront project goes through, and anyone questions the bid later. They point to the donation. They say the auditor's daughter was funding the Ashford charity, so clearly, the auditor was biased." "It is cleaner than that," Nora said, flipping through the papers. "They are setting up a narrative of financial instability. If Frank speaks out, they will say he pressured you to donate because he needed money, or that he is mentally declining, and they are using your digital signature to do it. What do I do?" "We sever the limb before the infection spreads," Nora said. She pulled out a legal pad. "First, we lock down your money. You open a new account today, at a bank the Ashfords do not use. You transfer every cent that is legally yours, your paycheck, your personal savings. Leave the joint account with a minimum balance. Graham will notice." "Let him," Nora said. "He will think you are just nesting, or saving for a nursery upgrade. We will come up with a lie later. Second, the digital signature. You need to revoke your current digital ID and issue a new one with two-factor authentication that only comes to a burner phone. Do not use your primary cell. They might have cloned it." "I have a burner," I said. "My dad gave me one." "Smart man," Nora said. Third, we draft a separation agreement. We do not file it yet. We keep it in the chamber. It will include a clause for financial abuse and fraudulent conveyance. If they try to release any information about your father, we threaten to file this publicly. The Ashfords hate bad press more than they love money." "And the baby?" I asked, my hand instinctively going to my stomach. Nora's face softened, just for a fraction of a second. "We set up a separate trust. I will draft the paperwork. The Baby Wallace Education Fund, sole trustee. You, if Graham wants to contribute, he can write a check. But he gets no access." She looked at me over the rim of her glasses. "Are you ready to play this game, Maisie? Because once we start, there is no going back to Sunday dinners." "I burned the Sunday dinner table in my head 3 hours ago," I said. "Good." I left Nora's office and went straight to my workplace. Juniper Ridge Financial. I walked into the HR director's office without an appointment. Maisie, Sarah, the HR director, looked up, surprised. "I thought you were out sick with a migraine." "I am," I said, "but this couldn't wait. I need to file a formal disclosure." I sat down. I kept my back straight. "I need to report a potential external conflict of interest involving my spouse's business dealings," I said. "I have reason to believe that my name or financial credentials may be used without my consent in relation to the Ashford Meridian Group. I am taking steps to rectify it, but I want it on the record with the firm today that I have no knowledge of, or involvement in, their current municipal bids." Sarah typed furiously. "This is unusual. Maisie, are you in legal trouble?" "No," I said. "I am practicing reputation risk management. If the Ashfords crash, I am not going down with the wreckage, and neither is Juniper Ridge." It was a cold move. It was a move that signaled I was preparing for a war that might splash mud on my employer, but it also created a third-party timestamp. If Graham tried to say I was a willing participant later, I had a corporate record proving I had denounced the connection days before the scandal broke. I drove home at 5 o'clock. When I pulled into the driveway, Graham's car was already there. My heart rate spiked, but I forced my breathing to slow. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. I walked inside. The house smelled of roasted chicken. Graham was in the kitchen, wearing an apron. He turned when I entered, a look of exaggerated concern on his face. "Babe," he exclaimed, "you are back. I was so worried. I called you twice. Did you go to the doctor?" "I just went for a drive," I said, putting my keys in the bowl. The fresh air helped the headache. "You should have told me," he chided gently, walking over to hug me. "I would have driven you. You know I do not like you driving when you are not feeling well. What if you got dizzy?" He hugged me. His arms felt like a cage. I stood stiffly, enduring the contact. "I made dinner," he said, pulling back and smiling. "And I got you a little something to cheer you up after the intensity of yesterday." He pointed to the counter. There was a small blue box from a high-end jewelry store. "Open it," he urged. I opened the box. It was a diamond tennis bracelet. It was beautiful. It cost at least $8,000. "Graham," I said, "this is too much." "Nothing is too much for the mother of my child," he said. He kissed my cheek. "I just want you to be happy, and I want us to be a team. You know that, right?" "A team?" I repeated. "Exactly. By the way," he said, turning back to the stove to stir the sauce. "I was thinking about your dad. I feel bad about how things went down at the party. Maybe I should stop by his place just to clear the air." He wasn't asking to apologize. He was asking to see if my father was home. He was fishing for intel. "He is busy," I said. "He is working on his garden." "Right, the garden?" Graham laughed. "Well, tell him I said hi." I went upstairs to change. I took a small notebook from my purse. I wrote down the date and the time. Monday, 5:30 p.m. Graham gave me a diamond bracelet. Value approx $8,000. Immediately followed by questions about Frank's location. Attempted manipulation high. Then I wrote another entry below it. Monday, 5:45 p.m. Graham commented that I looked tired and emotional when I didn't smile enough at the gift, establishing the unstable narrative. I hid the notebook in the bottom of my underwear drawer, beneath the maternity shapewear I never wore. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Celeste. "Maisie, darling," her voice purred through the speaker. "How are you feeling?" "I am managing, Celeste," I said. "Good. Listen, I have been thinking. Sunday was chaotic. The mayor's call, the heat, the crowd. I feel we didn't get a chance to properly celebrate. I want to host a small family dinner tomorrow night. Just us. Warren, me, you, Graham, and Maris." "A dinner?" I asked. "Yes, a peace offering. We want to apologize if we made Frank feel uncomfortable. We want to make sure everything is right between our families before the baby comes. Please say you will come." Her voice was smooth, but I heard the underlying command. This wasn't a dinner. It was a summit. The vote was on Friday. Today was Monday. They were running out of time to neutralize my father. If they couldn't get to him, they would try to get to him through me, again. "That sounds lovely." "Celeste," I said. "We will be there." "Wonderful. 7 o'clock. Don't be late." I hung up. I texted Nora immediately. "Dinner at the Ashford estate tomorrow. 7 p.m. They are calling it an apology. I think it is an ambush." Nora replied 3 minutes later. "It is definitely an ambush. But go. You need to hear what they are offering." And Maisie, I found something in the foundation documents. I stared at the typing bubble. What the Ashford Family Foundation structure. Nora wrote, "It is not a standard nonprofit. It is set up as a limited liability management trust. Guess who is listed as the managing director of special projects with full liability for compliance failures?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "Who you?" Nora wrote. "They forged your appointment 6 months ago. If the waterfront project is flagged for bribery or fraud, the money trail ends at the foundation. And the person legally responsible for the Foundation's special projects is Maisie Wallace Ashford. I dropped the phone on the bed. I wasn't just a donor. I wasn't just a prop. I was the fall guy. If the scheme worked, they got rich. If the scheme failed, or if the authorities came knocking, Graham and Warren would claim ignorance. They would point to the documents. They would say, "We didn't know. Maisie was running the Special Projects Division. Maisie authorized the funds. Maisie must have been trying to help her father get the contract." I would go to prison. They would go to the country club. I looked at the diamond bracelet sitting on the dresser. It glittered in the dim light. It wasn't a gift. It was a handcuff. I picked up the phone again. My hands were steady now. The fear had burned away, leaving only a cold, hard clarity. "I will wear a wire." I texted Nora. "No," Nora replied. "Use your phone. Voice memo app. Keep it in your purse. And Maisie. Do not sign anything. Not a napkin. Not a card. Nothing. Understood." I typed. I walked downstairs to join my husband for dinner. He was plating the chicken. He looked up and smiled. That perfect, handsome Ashford smile. "Ready to eat?" he asked. "Starving," I said. I sat down. I picked up my knife and fork. I looked at the meat. I cut into it. I was going to eat their food. I was going to smile at their jokes. And tomorrow night, I was going to walk into their house and let them think they had won. Right up until the moment I burned their legacy to the ground. The drive to the Ashford estate felt less like a commute to a family dinner and more like a transport to a sentencing hearing. I had instructed my father to stay home. I told him that if he came, they would just put up their walls. But if I went alone, they might get arrogant enough to leave a window open. I parked my car between Warren's massive SUV and Maris's convertible. I checked my purse one last time. My phone was in the side pocket, the microphone facing out. I opened the voice memo app, hit record, and then dimmed the screen. I slipped a stick of gum into my mouth to calm the nausea rising in my throat. I walked to the front door. I did not knock. I still had a key, a heavy brass thing that felt cold in my palm. The dining room was already set. It was a smaller table than the one they used for galas, intimate but imposing, lit by a chandelier that cast long, sharp shadows against the silk wallpaper. Celeste was the first to see me. She was arranging napkins with the precision of a surgeon. When she looked up, her face arranged itself into a mask of maternal warmth, so convincing it almost made me doubt the recording I had in my purse. "Maisie," she breathed, coming around the table to offer a hug that barely touched me. "You came. I was worried the drive might be too much for you in your condition." "I am fine, Celeste," I said. "Graham said it was important." "It is," she said. "Family is always important." Warren Ashford sat at the head of the table. He did not stand up. He was a man who believed gravity should bend to him, not the other way around. He gestured to the empty chair on his right. "Sit," Warren grunted. "Graham is pouring drinks." I sat. Across from me, Maris was scrolling on her phone. She did not look up, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. She knew what this was. We all knew. Graham entered from the wet bar in the corner. He placed a glass of sparkling water in front of me and a glass of dark red wine in front of himself. He sat next to me, his knee brushing mine under the table. It was a territorial touch. "Glad you made it, babe," he said. "We just wanted to clear the air. Sunday was intense." "It was a baby shower," I said, unfolding my napkin. "It was supposed to be joyful." "And it was," Celeste said quickly, taking her seat opposite Graham. "But you know how it is. Put too many people in a room, add a little heat, and misunderstandings happen. We just feel that your father well." "Perhaps he felt out of place." "He felt insulted," I said. "He felt defensive," Warren corrected. His voice was like grinding stones. "Because he knows he is stepping into an arena where he does not belong." The first course was served by the housekeeper, who moved like a ghost, tomato bisque, red and thick. "Let's not start with hostilities," Celeste said. Smiling tightly at Warren, she turned to me. "Maisie, darling, we are worried about you. Truly. We see how stressed you are, and we know that Frank is complicating things." "How is he complicating things?" I asked. "He is just doing his job." "His job was to retire," Maris chimed in, finally putting her phone down. "His job is to be a grandfather. But instead, he is running around town playing detective, bothering the mayor, and trying to act like he still matters in the city administration. It is embarrassing. Maisie, for you, people are talking." "Let them talk," I said. "We cannot let them talk," Graham said. He turned in his chair to face me. His eyes were pleading, but it was the rehearsed pleading of a salesman. "Maisie, this waterfront deal, it is not just business. It is the future of this family. It is the future of our child. If this deal goes through, the stock options alone will set up the baby for life. Ivy League, trust funds, everything." "And if it doesn't?" I asked. "It has to," Warren said. He cut a piece of bread with aggressive force. "We have invested too much capital. We are not going to let a retired bureaucrat with a grudge derail a $300 million development." "He doesn't have a grudge," I said, keeping my voice level. "He has an audit report. If everything is clean—" "Warren, why are you worried?" The table went silent. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop. Warren put his knife down. He looked at me with eyes that were devoid of anything resembling family affection. "In this world, Maisie," Warren said slowly, "there is no such thing as clean. There is only done and not done. There are builders, and there are obstacles. Your father is choosing to be an obstacle. And I want you to understand something. Obstacles get removed, and people who stand next to obstacles, they get hurt by the debris. We do not want you to get hurt." It was a threat. It was a soft, well-dressed threat, but it was a threat nonetheless. "Are you threatening my father?" I asked. "We are protecting him." Celeste interrupted, her voice shrill. "Don't you see? If he keeps pushing, the city will dig into him. They will find something. Maybe he made a mistake 10 years ago. Maybe he missed a filing. These things have a way of surfacing when you annoy powerful people. We can stop that. We can protect his pension. We can protect his reputation. But he has to stop. He has to recuse himself," Graham said. "That is all. He just needs to tell the mayor that he cannot be objective because his daughter is an Ashford. It is a graceful exit. He saves face. We get the contract. Everyone wins. And if he doesn't, then he is choosing to destroy your happiness." Maris said, "He is selfish. Maisie, he is jealous that you married up. He wants to drag you back down to his level. Can't you see that you are so emotional right now with the pregnancy? You are not seeing clearly. He is manipulating you." Blame the hormones. There it was. "I see very clearly," I said. "I see a family that is terrified of one old man with a calculator." "Maisie," Graham said, his voice hardening. "Enough. We are trying to offer you a solution. You talk to him. You tell him to step down. You tell him that if he cares about his grandchild, he will stop this crusade. If you do, that things will change around here. We will give you the respect you want. You will not just be the wife. You will be a partner. We will bring you into the fold properly." "Properly?" I asked. "Like you brought me into the foundation." Graham froze. Celeste's glass halted halfway to her mouth. Warren's eyes narrowed. "I beg your pardon," Celeste asked. "The foundation," I said. "The Ashford Family Foundation. Graham transferred $5,000 from our joint account last week. While I was sick—" "That was a donation," Graham said quickly, a flush rising on his neck. "I told you, tax purposes." "And the paperwork?" I asked. "The structure, I did some reading. Graham, I found out that I am not just a donor. I am listed as a director, the managing director of special projects." I looked around the table. Their faces were studies in panic. They hadn't expected me to look. They thought I was just a compliance officer at a desk job, not a compliance officer in my own home. "So," I continued, my voice calm, contrasting with the chaotic beating of my heart, "if I am a director, I should know what I signed, Because I do not remember signing anything. I remember having a fever. I remember sleeping. I do not remember authorizing a liability structure that makes me responsible for your project funds." "You are confused," Celeste said. Her smile was gone. "You signed those papers months ago. When you joined the family, it was part of the prenuptial packet." "No," I said. "I read the prenup. This is new. And since you are asking me to tell my father to back off to avoid a conflict of interest, isn't it interesting that you created a financial conflict of interest for me right before the vote? It is standard asset protection." Warren slammed his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. "You are being ungrateful. We put you on the board to give you status." "To give you a salary." "I never received a salary," I said. "It is deferred," Maris shouted. "God, you are so stupid. It is deferred compensation. It is for the baby." "Is it?" I looked at Graham. "Or is it so that if the bribe money is traced, it is traced to my digital ID and not yours?" The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a bomb that had just landed but hadn't detonated yet. Graham looked at me with horror, not because I was wrong, but because I was right, and he knew I knew. "Maisie," Graham whispered, "you need to stop talking, right now." "Or what?" I asked. "Or you will investigate me too, like you investigated my dad." Suddenly, a sound cut through the tension. Ring, ring, ring. It was a phone. Everyone looked at Graham. He shook his head. Everyone looked at Warren. He checked his pocket. Empty. The sound was coming from my purse. I reached down. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I pulled out the phone. The screen was bright in the dim room. The name on the display was clear. Mayor Donovan Price. I stared at it. I had never given the mayor my number. My father had never given the mayor my number. Frank was paranoid about security. He wouldn't open a line to me unless it was an absolute emergency. "Who is it?" Celeste demanded. "Is it Frank?" I turned the screen so they could see it. "It is the mayor," I said. The color drained from Celeste's face. She looked like she had seen a ghost. "Why?" Warren's voice failed him for the first time. "Why is Donovan Price calling you?" "He knows," Graham whispered. "He knows she is here." The phone continued to ring. It demanded attention. It was an intrusion of the public world into their private fortress. I didn't answer it. I let it ring. "Answer it," Warren commanded. "Put it on speaker." "No," I said. "Answer the damn phone," Maris screamed. "He is calling to negotiate." Celeste blurted out. Her voice was high, hysterical. "That is what this is. Frank put him up to it. He is using the mayor to squeeze us." She stood up, her napkin falling to the floor. "That old man," Celeste shouted, pointing a shaking finger at my phone. "He thinks he can blackmail us. He thinks he can use the mayor to demand a bigger payout. Who does he think he is? We offered him a graceful exit, and now he wants to drag the mayor into a family dispute to drive up the price. He is nothing but a cheap extortionist." I froze. The recording app was still running in the background. She had just admitted it. She had just twisted the narrative in real time. In her panic, she had revealed their entire strategy. They believed everyone had a price, and they were convinced my father was just holding out for more money. By accusing him of extortion, she was admitting that there was something to be extorted for. She was admitting there was a deal to be made. "He is not asking for money, Celeste," I said quietly. "He is asking for the truth." "There is no truth," Celeste yelled. "There is only the deal, and he is ruining it." The phone stopped ringing. The silence returned. But now it was different. It was the silence of a confession hanging in the air. Graham looked at his mother. Then he looked at me. He saw the way I was holding my phone. He saw the darkness of the screen, but the faint red line at the top that indicated an active background app. His eyes widened. "Maisie," he said, his voice trembling. "What is your phone doing?" I stood up. "I think I need to go," I said. "Sit down," Warren growled. He started to rise from his chair. "I wouldn't do that." "Warren," I said. The mayor just called. He knows where I am. If I do not call him back in 5 minutes, he is going to send a patrol car to check on the welfare of a city witness. It was a lie. I had no idea why the mayor called, but they didn't know that. Warren sank back into his chair. He looked defeated. He looked old. "You are making a mistake, girl," Warren said. "You are declaring war on your own family." "No," I said, clutching my purse and the evidence inside to my chest. "I am just resigning from the board." I turned and walked out of the dining room. My legs felt like jelly, but I didn't stop. I heard Graham call my name, but I didn't turn back. I walked out the front door, into the cool night air, and got into my car. I locked the doors. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the keys twice before I could start the engine. As I drove away, speeding down the long driveway away from the house that was supposed to be my future, my phone buzzed again. A text from the number that had just called. "Mrs. Ashford, this is Donovan Price. Your father is with me at City Hall. We have a situation. You need to come in. Now." I looked at the rearview mirror. The Ashford estate was shrinking in the distance, a glowing castle on a hill. I wasn't safe yet, but I had the recording. And for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't just Maisie the wife, I was Maisie the witness, and I was driving straight to the truth. The meeting did not take place in a dramatic underground parking garage. It happened in the brightly lit, sterile conference room of Nora Keene's law office at 8 o'clock the next morning. The blinds were drawn, not for mood, but for security. I sat at the head of the table. My father, Frank, sat to my right. Nora sat to my left. On the table lay the 3 pillars of our strategy, the timeline of the fraud, the unauthorized bank transfer records, and the audio recording of Celeste Ashford admitting to the extortion narrative. "We are done reacting," I said, my voice steady. "Every time we react to them, they spin it. If I get angry, I am hormonal. If Dad refuses a call, he is obstructive. If I leave dinner early, I am unstable. We need to change the venue." "Agreed," Nora said. She slid a document across the table. "This is a cease and desist regarding the defamation of Frank Wallace. It is drafted, stamped, and ready to be served. But we are not serving it yet. If we serve it now, they will know we are coming for them legally, and they will circle the wagons. They will destroy evidence. We need them to feel safe for one more day," Frank said. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. "I got a tip from my contact at City Hall. The mayor is announcing the shortlist for the waterfront redevelopment project tomorrow night. It is a public town hall, but it is effectively a coronation. The Ashfords expect to be named the primary developer. They need a photo op," I realized. That is why Celeste called the dinner an apology. That is why Graham gave me the bracelet. They need the image of the happy, united family standing behind the patriarch. They need the auditor's daughter smiling next to the CEO. "Exactly," Frank said. "If you are there, smiling and holding Graham's hand, it validates everything. It tells the council that the conflict of interest is resolved. It tells the public that the Wallace family supports the Ashford bid." "And if I am not there," I asked, "then the rumors start." Nora said, "They will say you are hospitalized. They will say you are having a breakdown. They will control the story of your absence, just like they controlled the story of your marriage." I looked at the timeline I had created. "I will go," I said. Frank frowned. "Maisie, no, it is too dangerous. They will corner you." "I will go," I repeated. "But I'm not going as a prop. I am going as a witness. If they want a show, I will give them one, but it won't be the one they rehearsed. If you do this," Nora warned, tapping her pen on the table, "you have to be bulletproof. You cannot give them a single inch of emotional leverage. No crying, no shouting. You have to be a statue until the moment you drop the hammer." "I can do that," I said. "Then we need to fortify your position." Nora said, "I am preparing a draft for an emergency separation order. It cites financial abuse and identity fraud. I will have it in my briefcase at the event. If Graham tries to physically move you or force you into a car, we file it instantly. It triggers an automatic restraining order." Good, I said. What else? The medical angle. Nora said, Celeste's hormone comment on the tape. That is their safety net. If you expose them, they will claim you are suffering from prenatal psychosis. We need to cut that net. I stood up. I have an appointment with my obstetrician at 10. Make sure Dr. Evans writes it down, Nora said. Patient is oriented, lucid, and psychologically stable. Get it in writing. Maisie, with a timestamp. I left the office and drove to the clinic. The examination was routine, but the conversation was not. I sat on the paper-covered exam table, my hands folded over my stomach. Dr. Evans, I said, I need a favor, a professional one. Everything looks perfect with the baby. Maisie, she said, removing her gloves. Heartbeat is strong. I am not worried about the baby's heart, I said. I am worried about my legal standing. I am going through a high-conflict family situation. There have been suggestions that my pregnancy is affecting my mental capacity, that I am hysterical. Dr. Evans stopped writing in my chart. She looked at me over her glasses. She had known me for 5 years. She knew I was the woman who created color-coded spreadsheets for my vitamin intake. That is ridiculous, she said. I know, I said, but I need a note. I need a formal medical statement asserting that I am mentally sound and capable of making legal and financial decisions, and I need it dated today. She wrote the letter. I put it in my purse next to the recording device. When I got home, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Graham's car was in the driveway. I walked in. The atmosphere in the house was toxic. It felt like the air had been replaced with gasoline. Graham was sitting at the kitchen island. He wasn't working. He was just sitting there, staring at a blank spot on the wall. When I entered, he snapped his head toward me. Where have you been? He demanded. Dr. Evans, I said calmly. Checkup. You left the dinner, he said. He stood up and walked toward me. He didn't look like the man I married. He looked like a cornered animal. You just walked out. Do you have any idea what you did? Mom was hysterical. Dad had to take a beta blocker. I told you, Graham. The mayor called. I had to take it. Why? He was in my face now. Why is the mayor calling you? What did you tell him? I didn't tell him anything. I lied. He wanted to know if Dad was okay. He heard rumors. What rumors? That Dad was being harassed, that someone was pressuring him. Graham's face went pale. And what did you say? I said Dad is a big boy. I said he can handle himself. Graham let out a breath. He ran a hand through his hair. Okay. Look, we can fix this. We can still fix this. But you have to work with me, Maisie. Work with you how? Tomorrow night, he said. The town hall, the shortlist announcement. You have to come. You have to stand with the family. I do not think that is a good idea, Graham. It is the only idea, he shouted. His voice cracked. If you are not there, it looks like an admission of guilt. It looks like we are hiding something. You have to come, and you have to smile, and you have to look like you support this project, because you do support it. Maisie, you support this family. You support our child. Is that what this is about? I asked quietly. The child. Of course it is. He grabbed my shoulders. Do you think I want to deal with permits and zoning and my father's yelling, I am doing this for us, for the legacy? This deal is going to make us royalty in this state. Our kid will never have to work a day in his life. I looked at him. I looked at the desperation in his eyes. He truly believed it. He believed that corruption was a justifiable cost for comfort. He believed that selling my father out was a fair trade for a trust fund. You are hurting me, Graham, I said. He dropped his hands instantly. I am sorry. The pressure is insane. Please, Maisie, just do this one thing. Just show up tomorrow. Wear the blue dress. Wear the bracelet I gave you. Just stand there. That is all you have to do. Okay, I said. I will be there. Relief washed over his face. It was pathetic. Thank you. You won't regret it. I promise. I went upstairs to rest. I locked the bedroom door. I sat at my desk and pulled out the burner phone Nora had told me to use. I had one final task before the stage was set. I had the digital logs. I had the IP addresses proving that the device used to access my bank account was Graham's iPad, located at the Ashford estate, at a time when I was verified to be in bed at our home by my smartwatch health data. I did not send them to the general police tip line. That would take weeks to process. I opened the encrypted email app. I typed in the address for the City of Crown Harbor's Office of Special Investigations. This was the Internal Affairs Division that reported directly to the mayor, bypassing the compromised procurement department. Subject evidence of fraudulent financial activity, waterfront bid. I attached the logs. I attached the affidavit from my father stating he had never solicited a bribe. I attached the screenshot of the transaction. I hit send. The digital receipt popped up. Received 4:15 p.m. It was done. The bomb was planted. Now I just had to wait for the timer to run out. My personal phone buzzed. I picked it up. It was a text message from a blocked number. If you make a scene tomorrow, you will be the one who looks crazy. We have the medical history ready. Don't be a hero. Think about the baby. I stared at the screen. We have the medical history ready. They were going to try to commit me. They were going to try to say I was unfit to be a mother to secure the Ashford heir and silence the witness in one move. I screenshotted the text. I sent it to Nora. Add this to the pile. I typed. Then, my phone rang. It wasn't a blocked number. It was a number I recognized from the screen at the baby shower. Mayor Donovan Price. I answered it. Mrs. Ashford. The mayor's voice was deep and calm. Mr. Mayor, I said. I received a package from your father, he said, and my office just flagged a digital submission from an anonymous source that matches the data in that package. That is interesting, I said. I want you to know something, Price said. Tomorrow night is going to be a very public event. The press will be there. The cameras will be live. The Ashfords are expecting a celebration. I know. If you are planning to do what I think you are planning to do, the mayor continued, you should know that I have instructed the chief of police to have officers stationed at the stage exits, not to arrest you, to ensure you walk out of that building safely. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because your father is the only honest man left in this city, Price said, and because I have a daughter, and if someone used her to steal from me, I would burn the city down. I do not want to burn the city down, Mr. Mayor, I said. Good, he said. Then just help me clean it up. See you tomorrow. The line went dead. I looked at the blue dress hanging on the closet door. It was silk. It was expensive. It was the costume of a dutiful wife. I walked over to it. I ran my hand down the fabric. Tomorrow, I would wear the dress. I would wear the bracelet. I would play the part perfectly. And then, when the spotlight hit us, I would show them exactly what happens when you underestimate the woman standing in the shadows. The printer in my home office hummed with a rhythm that felt strangely soothing. Zip, whir, slide. It was the sound of order being imposed on chaos. I watched as the pages stacked up in the tray, each one a paper brick in the wall I was building between myself and the Ashford family. This was not an emotional purge. This was a file compilation. I treated it exactly as I would a high-risk audit at Juniper Ridge. I had labeled the physical folder Wallace for Ashford Final. I picked up the first stack, the timeline. It started 3 months ago, with the first background check Graham had run on my father, and ended with the timestamp of the threat I had received yesterday. Next came the bank records, the unauthorized transfer of $5,000, the digital signature logs I had pulled from the router, proving the device used was Graham's iPad, not my phone. Then, the transcripts. I had transcribed the recording of Celeste's voice. Just blame it on hormones. Reading the words on paper made them look even uglier than they sounded. They looked like a script for gaslighting. I stapled the pages together. The sharp clack of the stapler was the only other sound in the room. I sat back in my chair and looked at a blank sheet of stationery. It was heavy. Cream-colored paper with my monogram at the top. MWA, Maisie Wallace Ashford. I picked up a pen. I needed to get the words out of my head so they would not clutter my focus tomorrow. I did not intend to send this letter. It was for the fireplace. Graham. I keep asking myself when the transaction happened. Was it on our wedding day? Was it when I got pregnant? Or was it 3 years ago? When you first met me and realized I was the daughter of the city auditor, I want to believe you loved me. I want to believe the way you held my hand during the ultrasound was real. But love does not steal. Love does not frame a father. Love does not watch his wife get insulted by his family and call it a joke. Do you love me, Graham? Or do you love the fact that I represent safety? I am the compliance officer. I am the rule follower. I am the boring girl who makes you look grounded. You thought I was safe. You thought I would never burn the house down because I was too busy keeping it clean. You were wrong. I read the note once, then I walked over to the shredder. I fed the paper into the machine and watched my feelings turn into confetti. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from my father. The mayor just confirmed the schedule. He is going to call me up to the podium before he announces the winner. He wants me to confirm the integrity of the process publicly. That is when we do it. I typed back, I will be ready. Frank, make sure you stand near the exit. Once I start talking, the room is going to get hostile. Maisie, I am not afraid of them anymore. I set the phone down. A moment later, I heard the doorbell ring. I checked the security camera feed on my monitor. It was a courier. He was holding a long, garment-bagged package stamped with the logo of the most expensive boutique in Crown Harbor. I went downstairs to sign for it. The courier handed it to me with a nod and left. I carried the bag into the living room and unzipped it. It was a dress. Of course it was a dress. It was a floor-length gown in deep midnight blue silk. The Ashford Company color. It was elegant, tasteful, and undoubtedly cost more than my father's car. There was a card attached to the hanger. Celeste's handwriting was looped and sharp. Maisie, darling, wear this tomorrow. You must look impeccable. You are the image of the Ashford future. Do not let us down. Love, Celeste. I ran my hand over the silk. It was cold to the touch. You are the image, not a person, an image. A billboard to be dressed up and wheeled out to convince the shareholders that everything was stable. I walked over to the large mirror in the hallway. I held the dress up against my body. It was beautiful. It would hug my pregnancy bump perfectly. It would make me look like the glowing, wealthy, dutiful wife of the heir. I looked at my reflection. My face was pale, but my eyes were clear. I looked at the curve of my stomach. For 7 months, I had been telling myself that I put up with the Ashfords for the baby. I thought that giving my child this legacy, the money, the connections, the name, was the ultimate act of motherly love. I was wrong. My child did not need a trust fund built on fraud. My child did not need a grandfather who threatened people. My child did not need a father who stole from his own family. My child needed peace. My child needed to know that truth mattered. We are not doing this for them anymore, I whispered to the reflection. We are doing this for us. I hung the dress on the coat rack. I would wear it, but not for Celeste. I would wear it as armor. I went back upstairs. My personal email pinged. It was Nora. Subject draft documents review. Immediately, I opened the attachment. It was a PDF titled Separation Agreement Protective Order Request. Nora had been thorough. Clause 4 financial restitution. It demanded the immediate return of the $5,000, plus legal fees, and a forensic accounting of all joint assets. Clause 7 anti-defamation. It stipulated that any public disparagement of Frank Wallace or Maisie Wallace regarding mental health or professional competency would result in an immediate release of suppressed evidence, the recordings. Clause 9, child custody. It requested sole physical custody pending a psychiatric evaluation of the father, citing coercive control and financial exploitation. It was brutal. It was necessary. I saved the file to my phone. I would not sign it tonight. I would sign it tomorrow. The moment the truth came out, it would be my exit ticket. At 6 o'clock, Graham came home. He looked haggard. His tie was loosened, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He carried the smell of stress, a mix of stale coffee and nervous sweat. He saw the dress hanging in the hall. He stopped and touched the fabric, a look of relief washing over his face. "You got it," he said. "Mom said she sent something special." "It is very blue," I said, standing at the top of the stairs. Graham looked up at me. He tried to smile, but it faltered. He walked up the stairs, moving slowly, like an old man. "Maisie," he said when he reached the landing, "can we just stop? Can we just have a normal night? I feel like I'm losing my mind." "That depends on you, Graham," I said. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was damp. "I know you are angry. I know the dinner was a disaster. But tomorrow is the finish line. Once we get the bid, once the contract is signed, the pressure goes away. Dad will back off. Mom will calm down. We can just be a family. We can go on a baby moon, anywhere you want. Paris, Hawaii." He was bargaining. He was trying to buy my compliance with a vacation, just like he had tried to buy it with a bracelet. "I do not want to go to Hawaii, Graham," I said. "Then where?" he asked, desperate. "Just tell me. I will make it happen. Just please, tomorrow night, when the mayor speaks, when your dad goes up there, just stand by me, clap, smile. Do not make a scene." "I am not going to make a scene," I said. "I am going to listen to the speeches. And if your dad, if he tries to say something, if he gets confused—" Graham squeezed my hand. "You know how he gets. If he starts rambling, just help me guide him off stage. Okay, gently. We frame it as him being overwhelmed." I pulled my hand away. The coldness in my chest solidified into ice. He was already planning the spin. If Frank told the truth, they would claim he was senile, and they wanted me to be the nurse who led him away. "I will do exactly what is necessary," I said. "I promise." "Okay," Graham said. He exhaled, as if a weight had been lifted. He didn't hear the ambiguity in my words. He only heard what he wanted to hear. "Thank you, babe. Let's order pizza. Let's just watch a movie and forget the world exists." We ate pizza in silence. We watched a comedy that neither of us laughed at. At 10 o'clock, Graham went to bed. He fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted by his own machinations. I lay awake. The house was quiet. I checked my phone one last time. There was a new message from my father. "Frank, I am at the safe house. The mayor just texted me." My heart skipped a beat. Maisie. What did he say? Frank sent a screenshot of a text message from Donovan Price. Donovan Price. "My security chief just swept the hall for tomorrow. We found a listening device in the podium. They are terrified. Frank, and they know you have the original digital files. They know you did not turn everything over to the inquiry board yet. Be careful. They might try to get to you tonight." I stared at the words. The original digital files. My father had the hard drive, the one with the raw data from the procurement server, the one that proved the Ashfords had altered the bid documents before submitting them. That was the smoking gun. The recordings were bad, but the hard drive was prison time. I typed back. "Maisie, are you safe? Is the drive safe?" I watched the 3 little dots appear. Then they disappeared. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Maisie. Dad. Nothing. I sat up in bed. The silence of the house suddenly felt very loud. I looked at Graham sleeping beside me. His phone was on the nightstand. Face down. Had he sent someone? Had Warren sent someone? I dialed my father's number. It rang, and rang, and rang. Then, voicemail. "This is Frank. Leave a message." I hung up. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. A black sedan was parked 3 houses down. It hadn't moved in 2 hours. They weren't just watching me. They were waiting. I gripped the windowsill. "You should have answered, Dad," I whispered. But the phone remained dark, and for the first time since this started, I wasn't just angry, I was terrified. The night was not over. And I had a feeling that by the time the sun came up, the polite war we had been fighting would turn into something much more violent. I went back to the closet. I moved the blue dress aside and reached into the back corner, behind the winter coats, I pulled out the manila envelope containing my own evidence. I slid it into my laptop bag. If they had gotten to my father, then I was the only one left with a weapon, and I would bring it to the stage, even if I had to walk through fire to get there. The City Hall of Crown Harbor was not designed for intimacy. It was a cavernous space of marble and echoes, built to make the people inside it feel small and the government feel large. Tonight, however, it had been transformed into a stage for the Ashford Meridian Group. A massive banner hung from the second-floor balcony. Crown Harbor Waterfront Renewal Building, tomorrow. Today, the slogan was printed in the exact shade of midnight blue as the silk dress Celeste had sent me. The color coordination was not accidental. We were all part of the branding. The Ashfords entered the hall like they were the royal family arriving for a coronation. Warren led the way. His chest puffed out, shaking hands with council members he had likely threatened or bribed over the last decade. Celeste walked a step behind him, a vision in cream satin, waving to people she privately despised. And then there was us. Graham gripped my elbow. His hand was sweating, the moisture seeping through the expensive fabric of my dress. He was smiling, but his jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping near his ear. "Keep your head up," he whispered through his teeth. "There is a camera to your left. Look happy. Look like you believe in this." I turned my head. I looked directly into the lens of the local news camera. I did not smile. I just stared, letting the camera capture the hollowness in my eyes. "Smile, Maisie," Celeste hissed, leaning back toward me without breaking her stride. "Do not make a face. You are the image of the family tonight. Do not ruin the aesthetic." "I am trying." "Celeste," I said, "but the dress is a little tight." "Beauty is pain, darling," she said. "Just hold it together for 1 hour. Then you can go home and put your feet up." We reached the front row. There were 4 seats reserved with gold placards. Warren, Celeste, Graham, Maisie. We sat. The room was packed. Every major developer, city official, and media outlet in the state was here. They were all expecting the same thing. The mayor would come out, give a speech about progress, and announce that the Ashford Meridian Group had won the bid. Then, confetti would fall, stocks would rise, and my father would be buried under the weight of their victory. I looked for my father. I scanned the back of the room, the exits, the press pit. He was nowhere to be seen. The text he had sent me last night, the mayor just texted me, was the last I had heard from him. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked at my chest. Had they stopped him? Had the car parked outside my house been a distraction while they intercepted him somewhere else? Graham squeezed my hand. "See," he whispered, following my gaze. "He is not here. He made the smart choice. He stayed home. It is going to be fine." The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the podium. Mayor Donovan Price walked out. He was a tall man with graying hair and a presence that commanded silence. He adjusted the microphone. He looked out at the crowd. He looked at the Ashford family in the front row. Warren nodded at him, a gesture of arrogant familiarity. "Go ahead. Donovan, say the words." "Ladies and gentlemen," Mayor Price began. His voice boomed through the hall. "We are here tonight to talk about the future of our waterfront. This project represents an investment of $300 million. It will change the skyline of Crown Harbor for generations." Applause broke out. Graham clapped hard, leaning forward. "But," the mayor continued, raising a hand. The applause died down. "A skyline is only as strong as its foundation, and in Crown Harbor, our foundation is the law, our foundation is trust, and our foundation is transparency." He paused. He looked down at his notes. "Over the last few weeks, the selection committee has faced unprecedented pressure," Price said. "We have seen revised bids, we have seen aggressive lobbying, and we have seen attempts to bypass the safeguards we put in place to protect the taxpayers' money." Graham's hand went still in mine. "Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of a winner," the mayor said. "But I cannot announce a winner when the game itself has been rigged." A murmur rippled through the room. Warren sat up straighter. Celeste looked confused. To explain why, the mayor said, I would like to invite up the man who designed those safeguards, a man who has served this city with quiet integrity for 40 years, Mr. Frank Wallace. The room gasped. Heads turned. Graham dropped my hand as if it burned him. From the side stage, out of the shadows, walked my father. He was not wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing his gray suit, the one he wore to church. He looked tired. He looked old. But he walked to that podium with a steady, determined gait that made him look 10 feet tall. He shook the mayor's hand. He stood in front of the microphone. The silence in the room was absolute. Graham turned to me. His eyes were wide with panic. Maisie, do something. You said you would guide him off stage if he got confused. Go get him, now. He does not look confused to me. Graham, I said. My father put on his reading glasses. He opened a folder. It was not a thick folder. It was thin, precise. Good evening, Frank said. His voice was calm, the voice of a man reading an inventory list. My name is Frank Wallace. I am the special consultant for procurement integrity. 2 months ago, I flagged the Ashford Meridian Group's bid for irregularities regarding subcontractor vetting and debt leveraging. Warren stood up. This is highly irregular, he shouted. This man is a retired clerk. He has no authority here. Sit down, Mr. Ashford, the mayor barked into the mic. Or I will have you removed. Warren sat, his face turning a violent shade of red. Following my initial report, Frank continued, ignoring the outburst. Several things happened. First, I was offered a consulting position with an Ashford subsidiary, which I declined. Second, a series of anonymous complaints were filed against my pension. Third, unauthorized transfers of funds were made into a charity account linked to the bidders, using the digital identity of a family member to create a falsified conflict of interest. Frank looked up. He looked directly at the front row. The goal was to discredit my audit by making it appear that I, or my family, had a financial stake in the project. The goal was to force my recusal so that a compromised replacement could approve the bid. He closed the folder. I am submitting my final recommendation to the City Council tonight, Frank said, based on evidence of coercion, attempted bribery, and fraudulent financial structuring. I recommend that the Ashford Meridian Group be disqualified from the waterfront project. Effective immediately. The room exploded. Reporters jumped to their feet. Flashbulbs went off like lightning. A man in a sharp suit walked onto the stage, the city attorney. He took the microphone from Frank. Thank you, Mr. Wallace, the city attorney said. In light of this testimony and the digital evidence provided to the Office of Special Investigations yesterday, the city is formally suspending the bidding process. We are opening a full criminal inquiry into the Ashford Meridian Group's lobbying practices. Lies. Celeste Ashford was on her feet. She wasn't the composed socialite anymore. She was a woman watching her empire crumble. She pointed a manicured finger at the stage. This is slander, she screamed, her voice cracking. That man is a liar. He is senile. He is trying to extort us. He is using his daughter, my daughter-in-law, to get money. Ask her. Ask Maisie. She turned to me. She grabbed my arm and yanked me upward. Tell them, Maisie, Celeste shrieked. Tell them your father is confused. Tell them you signed those donation papers because you wanted to help. Tell them. The cameras swiveled toward me. The room went quiet again, waiting for the pregnant wife to defend her husband's family. I looked at Celeste. I looked at Warren, who was glaring at me with pure hatred. I looked at Graham, who was mouthing the word please. I pulled my arm out of Celeste's grip. I will tell them, I said. I walked past her. I walked past Graham. I walked up the stairs to the stage. My father stepped back to give me room. He looked at me with pride. I took the microphone. It was heavy in my hand. My name is Maisie Wallace, I said. I did not use the Ashford name. And I am not confused. I reached into my purse. I pulled out the manila envelope I had packed the night before. The donation my mother-in-law refers to was a transfer of $5,000 made from my joint account while I was unconscious with a high fever, I said. The digital logs, which I have provided to the police, show the transfer was authorized from a device belonging to Graham Ashford. I heard a gasp from the crowd. Graham put his head in his hands. Furthermore, I continued, my voice gaining strength, the Ashfords claim my father is mentally unstable. They claim I am hormonal and unreliable. They prepared a narrative to discredit us both. I pulled out the small digital recorder. This is a recording from a dinner at the Ashford estate 2 nights ago. I said, this is Celeste Ashford explaining their strategy. I held the microphone to the speaker and pressed play. The sound was tinny, but clear enough for the whole room to hear. He thinks he can blackmail us. He thinks he can use the mayor to demand a bigger payout. Who does he think he is? There is no truth. There is only the deal. I let the words hang in the air. And this, I said, playing the second clip, the one Frank had given me. If needed, just blame it on hormones. Nobody questions a pregnant woman acting irrationally. I clicked the recorder off. I am not irrational, I said into the microphone. I am a compliance officer, and I am reporting a fraud. I looked down at Graham. He was looking at the floor. He couldn't even look me in the eye. This family tried to use my father to build a road, I said. And they tried to use me to hide the cracks. But we are not asphalt. We are people, and we are done being paved over. I placed the envelope on the podium. Mr. Mayor, I said, this file contains the timeline, the bank records, and a sworn affidavit from my obstetrician confirming my mental competency. From the side of the room, the double doors opened. Nora Keene walked in. She was flanked by 2 uniformed police officers, though they were just there to keep the peace. She carried a leather portfolio. She walked straight to the front row. She stopped in front of Graham. Graham Ashford, Nora said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. I am representing your wife. These are papers for an emergency legal separation and a protective order regarding the assets of the unborn child. She slapped the papers onto his lap. Sign them, I said from the stage. Now, Graham looked up. He looked at the cameras. He looked at his father, who was slumped in his chair, defeated. He looked at Celeste, who was sobbing into her hands. He realized there was no spin. There was no recovery. The Ashford image was dead. He took the pen Nora offered. He signed the papers on his knee, his hand shaking so hard the signature was barely legible. Thank you, Nora said. She took the papers back. I turned to my father. Ready to go. Dad, I asked. Ready, he said. We walked down the stairs together. We didn't go back to the seats. We walked down the center aisle, toward the exit. The crowd parted for us. Nobody said a word. The only sound was the clicking of cameras and the soft rustle of my blue silk dress. As we reached the doors, the mayor's voice came over the speaker one last time. Mr. Wallace, Mayor Price called out. We stopped and turned. Thank you, the mayor said. The city owes you a debt. And Frank? My father nodded. Nice suit, the mayor said. A few people chuckled, a nervous, relieved sound. I took my father's arm. We pushed open the heavy doors of City Hall and stepped out into the cool night air. The banner for the waterfront renewal hung limp above us, behind us. The Ashford dynasty was drowning in the flood of their own making, but out here, under the streetlights, the road was clear. I took a deep breath. It smelled like rain and freedom. Did you park far? I asked. Right out front, Dad said. I knew we wouldn't be staying long. I smiled. For the first time in months, it was a real smile. Let's go get some pancakes. Dad, I said. I am starving. Pancakes sound good, he said. We got into his old sedan. The engine started with a rattle and a hum. As we drove away, leaving the chaos in the rearview mirror, I put a hand on my stomach. My baby kicked. A strong, steady kick. It is okay. I thought, we are safe now. We are just us. And that was more than enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It was a long journey for Maisie and Frank, but truth always finds a way to the surface. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening while driving, cooking, or maybe relaxing after a long day? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more dramas about justice and resilience, please subscribe to the Maya Revenge Stories channel. Hit that like button and press the hype button to help this story reach more people. Your support means the world to us. See you in the next video.